Pirate's Most Powerful Villain, Chapter 101-120. Chapter 0101 Summoned Ice Dragon Queen. The Lich King's second ability is not an ally, but an ally. Sorry, I hit it too fast, I wrote it wrong. O, hollow square, O close black lens bracket. In the early hours of the morning, the devil's three horns appear to be quiet and mysterious. The dense fog filled the air, and the cold air floated on the sea surface, bringing a slight chill. A pirate ship was filled with a group of green-eyed skeletons. Just 10 minutes ago, these undead were still strangers. The captain with the hood could not escape his death in the end. Just when he tried to arrest Ankang, Qin Yang, who was still in a frozen state, sentenced him to death. Shu is a gifted skeleton. Although he has no memory, he turned into an undead after his death, and he still remembers to wear the captain's hat he used to wear. Among the 300 or so skeleton soldiers, he looked very special with his hat on. Suddenly, the group of undead looked at Qin Yang in unison, as if they were waiting for an order. Standing on Ankang's head with the lantern, Qin Yang quietly looked at the new group of skeleton soldiers. Too weak, they are the lowest level of skeleton soldiers. Even if they were a pirate with a bounty of 95 million before their death, without the physical body that has been trained all the time, they are a little stronger than ordinary skeleton soldiers. This kind of skeleton soldier, a single one, is simply unusable. Any pirate in the Great Root can be hacked to death. To be precise, it is not chopped to death, but chopped to pieces. The undead are already dead and will not die again. Try it with soul power, I'll have to experiment. Qin Yang secretly said in his heart. His blue eyes flickered constantly, obviously calculating the way. He killed the pirates on this ship and extracted nearly 300 souls, which he stored in the armor on his body. Without hesitation, Qin Yang pointed it out, and immediately, a piece of soul substance was divided and merged into the skeleton of the hooded skeleton. The next moment, a change occurred, absorbing this soul substance, and the color of the skeleton's bone surface deepened, from bone white to light gray. Even his eyes, the green light is a bit richer. It really became stronger. Qin Yang nodded, and immediately made another line. The hooded skeleton soldier continues to be strengthened, and the color of the bone surface continues to deepen. After hitting 10 souls in a row, this skeleton soldier condensed into a dark skeleton, and even a bone knife appeared, possessing a very weak wisdom. It's just like that. It probably has the combat power of an elite navy. Qin Yang closed his hands with satisfaction. An elite skeleton soldier consumes 10 souls. If you want to form an army of undead, you will have to have an army of 100,000, or even a million. The amount of souls consumed will probably be huge. However, the strength of each person's soul is different, and the unit needs to be requantified. Taking an elite skeleton soldier to consume 10 units of soul power as the standard, Qin Yang destroyed this pirate group and absorbed a total of almost 400 soul power. It's too little, so absorb more. Qin Yang looked at the sea from afar, pondered for a while, raised his hand and grabbed it in the air. In this sea area, for countless years, I don't know how many souls have wandered. Even if most of them have been dissipated over time, the accumulation is still a huge amount. Press it with one palm, grab it, and pump it. Immediately, within a radius of thousands of meters, the soul substances that have been floating all year round were gathered together, and they were all sucked into one palm. 20 soul powers. Qin Yang was surprised, more than expected. Immediately, Qin Yang started sailing all the way, absorbing all the way. 3 days later, Qin Yang traveled all over the sea area of half the Devil's Big 3 and 1 corner, and the harvest was quite rich. His soul power had increased from more than 400 at the beginning to 15,000. Afterwards, Qin Yang spent 3,000 soul power to strengthen all the junior skeleton soldiers on the pirate ship into elite skeleton soldiers. However, the mere 300 units are still too few. Qin Yang was silent for a moment, feeling that this was a little inefficient. This is only a low-level undead. If it is a high level, the consumption is probably greater. Speaking of this, Qin Yang remembered the third ability. Call. Of the three abilities of the Lich King, there is no need to say more about Frost. Allied forces convert corpses into undead. Humans, sea beasts, and terrestrial creatures can all do it. The summoning is even more direct. It uses the soul force to create a void and directly summons the undead. I still have 12,000 soul power. Standing on the back of the fish with the lantern Ankang, Qin Yang's eyes flashed, and he immediately raised his right hand. Immediately, the soul power in the armor ran wild, and tens of thousands of soul power quickly overflowed and condensed from the palm. Come out, my allies. Qin Yang didn't know what would be summoned for a large-scale summoning of 10,000 soul power, but the more soul power, the stronger the summoned creature. That was inevitable. I saw the sky above, the soul force so huge that it was visible to the naked eye, condensed and formed. It was like a ball of strangely colored jelly, gradually pulling to form a skeleton. The skeleton is in the shape of a dragon, not a dragon, but a western arlong, with a long keel, a ferocious head, bone wings above the back wings, and sharp claws. Everything looks extremely evil. And this bone dragon's chest, abdomen and head are still shining with a faint blue light. Roar! When everything condensed and formed, the skull dragon roared in the sky, flapped its wings, and set off strong winds and waves. Sindragosa. Qin Yang was stunned, Queen of Ice Dragon. As if hearing the voice of the Lich King, the skull dragon gradually quieted down, flapped its wings, and hovered in front of Qin Yang. King. The next moment, the Ice Dragon Queen opened her mouth and spat out a word in a very respectful tone. What surprised Qin Yang was that the voice was a mature female voice. Sure enough, it is the Queen of the Ice Dragon, Sindragosa. Qin Yang said in a low voice. Very good, from today onwards, you will be my mount. Yes, King. The Ice Dragon Queen has no objection and is very respectful. Qin Yang observed for a while, and found that the Ice Dragon Queen is not as powerful as he knew, which is of course, only 10,000 soul power. It would be good to be able to summon it. It seems that she will have to use her soul to improve her in the future. However, the undead army cannot be pulled down. Thinking of this, Qin Yang squatted down and touched Ankang's head. You go first, go back to the Sea Beast Legion, and execute the Sea Dragon's salvage order. After speaking, Qin Yang jumped up and jumped directly onto the Ice Dragon Queen. Seeing this, Lantern Ankang opened his eyes, nodded towards Qin Yang, then dived into the sea and disappeared in an instant. Go, cruise the sea, I need more soul power. Sitting on the Ice Dragon Queen, Qin Yang gave orders in a deep voice. Hearing this, she didn't talk nonsense. She immediately flapped her wings, gradually climbed the height, and walked around the sea with Qin Yang. 300 elite skeletons on the ship, let's put them here for now. Suddenly, there was thick fog ahead. It was obviously still late, but it was like nighttime, with very weak light. Qin Yang flew to a high place and saw an island in the distance. No, to be precise, it was not an island, but a huge ship. There is also an ancient castle on the super large ship that is comparable to an island. Is that a dread bark? Qin Yang's eyes narrowed. Shichibukai, Gecko Moria's lair. As if thinking of something, Qin Yang immediately ordered, go there. Don't hide your traces. Hearing this, the Ice Dragon Queen roared and fluttered her wings to fly high. The speed was faster than the flying state of the Sea Dragon. At the same time, in the ancient castle of the giant ship, a small bat flapped its wings and flew into a luxurious room. Hee Hilton, what's the matter? The room, Gecko Moria let out a weird laugh. He lowered his head and looked at the little bat, and the pair of shadow scissors in his hand was still clicking. No, Lord Moria, a dragon is flying this way. Dragon. Gecko Moria's expression changed drastically, and he stood up with a sigh. Impossible. How did that bastard Halong find it here? I didn't take action against him last time, and I can't even count on me. Sea Dragon. The little bat was stunned and said, it's not, it's a dragon with wings. It's a big one. It's not a sea dragon. Gecko Moria was startled, then relieved. HMPH, I want to see what it is. As soon as his voice fell, at this moment, the entire ancient castle seemed to be hit hard by something, and the room shook for a while. Roar. The sound of the dragon's roar spread all over the place. Chapter 0102-Destroy the Big Prison. Thank you for the 10,000 reward from the Big Brother. I love you, tilde thank you for the 2,000 reward from Shenui, tilde by the way, ask for a few automatic hollow square Roar. The dragon's roar was loud and loud, alarming the entire castle. On a large platform on the top floor of the castle, the Ice Dragon Queen raised her head and roared, and the powerful sound penetrated the wall and reached Gecko Moria's ears. It's so noisy. The luxurious room, Moria's eardrum was pierced by the sharp scream, and she couldn't help covering her ears with an annoyed expression on her face. The little bat with a human head said tremblingly, Lord Moria, the visitor is not good. Come on, I want to see what it is. With a cold snort, Moria waited until the dragon's roar faded, and then got up from the high chair and strode, making heavy footsteps all the way to the large courtyard on the top floor of the castle. When he arrived, dozens of strangely shaped zombies already existed, and in front of the zombie group, a bone dragon with a body length of 70 to 80 meters exuded majestic power. Seeing the existence of the Ice Dragon Queen, Moria's pupils shrank, and she blurted out, Arlong in the New World. No, the dragons from that place can't come out, and there are only dragons left with bones. What are you? As if she understood his words, the Ice Dragon Queen spit out human words and said, Insignificant human being, the king wants to see you, why don't you kneel down? Hearing this, Gecko Moria frowned, and then gave a weird smile. He, no matter what kind of creature you are, I am very interested in you, become my zombie soldier. Come on. With an order, the 60 or 70 zombies around them swarmed up, not afraid of such emotions at all. Seeing this, the Ice Dragon Queen fluttered her wings and lifted a dozen meters off the ground. She said indifferently, Ignorant human beings, you don't know anything about power. Between the words, she raised her dragon head and roared. Immediately, ice crystal-colored snow-white power condensed in his mouth, and next, this power turned into a cone-shaped storm. Frost breath. Whoosh. Like a biting frost and wind, the power of ice shrouded the large courtyard in an instant. The sound of clicking sounded, and in the blink of an eye, all the zombie soldiers who launched the charge turned into ice sculptures. At the moment when they were frozen, they even kept the action of stabbing. But this didn't end. After killing all the zombie soldiers in one hit, the queen's frost breath all went towards Moria. Seeing this, Gecko Moria's pupils shrank, both shocked and delighted, the dragon that masters the power of frost. I want you. Before he could finish his words, the breath of frost had already enveloped it, and in an instant, Gecko Moria turned into a statue. HMPH, weak human. The Ice Dragon Queen hummed softly. But at this moment, on the other side of the large courtyard, strange laughter sounded, and at the same time, Moria, who was frozen in ice, turned into a dark shadow from the head. Shadow clone. Gecko Moria walked out from behind another door in the big courtyard, and he grinned, Fortunately, I'm prepared. If you want to kill me so easily, I will look down on me. You are seeking your own death. The Ice Dragon Queen was furious. For the first time, she showed her power in front of the Lich King, but she didn't kill her opponent, which made her lose face. The pride of the Dragon Clan made her angry, and she immediately prepared to launch a second attack. Stop it. Suddenly, a low voice sounded above the dragon's back. Hearing this, the Ice Dragon Queen froze for a while, so she slowly descended, lowered her head, and used her body to pave a road to the ground. King. Above the dragon's back, a tall figure in dark armor stepped down. Seeing this person, Gecko Moria looked alert, a bone dragon, and he could deal with it leisurely, but this sudden appearance made him feel dangerous. This dragon is yours, Moria whispered. Who are you? Qinyang didn't say a word, and stepped down. While walking, the armor made a heavy metal collision sound, which was especially wonderful in this strange atmosphere. After he got his feet on the ground, Chinyang swept over the frozen zombie soldiers around him and said, "He, Gecko Moria, how many people do you have in your zombie army?" Hearing this, Moria's expression changed slightly. Although he believed that he was famous, he was somewhat of a figure even in the New World, but this strange person in front of him recognized him, which made him feel uneasy. No, the armor in front of him couldn't even be called a human being, and Moria couldn't feel the breath of any strangers. "Who the hell are you?" "My name is the Lich King." Chinyang's voice was low, full of loneliness and vicissitudes of life. "I'm here just to ask you to help me with one thing." "What?" Moria clicked. "Who are you? Why should I help you?" "Just a joke." He didn't recognize the person in front of him at all, and even if he did, he wouldn't be interested in helping him after destroying his 60 zombie soldiers. "I didn't ask you for advice, I just told you that you need to do something for me." Chinyang said calmly. "I want to destroy the underwater prison, one of the 3 major marine institutions. You can do your part." The deep-sea prison, this is the strongest prison in the world, where the most vicious prisoners are held, even the powerhouses of the 4 emperors. Of One Piece King of Pirates Roger in that place. As far as Chinyang knew, there was at least one person named Scarlet Earl, whose peak period was comparable to the current 4 emperors. And people like this, at the bottom of the deep-sea prison, God knows how many there are. Hearing this, Moria couldn't help being stunned. "Are you kidding me? Destroying the deep-sea prison? Just you? Presumptuous." The Ice Dragon Queen said unhappily. "Human, pay attention to your words." She growled hideously, making Moria's face twitch. Chinyang is very calm. He doesn't really need help very much. Given time, he can form a huge army of undead, and it is not impossible to directly overthrow the deep-sea prison. However, according to the speed of soul collection in the past 3 days, it seems a bit slow. If you want to achieve your goal, unless a country is slaughtered, it will be difficult to create a legion of 100,000 in a short period of time. Therefore, Chinyang chose to take the second place and find a few helpers. Just thinking about it, Moria came back to her senses and smiled strangely. He, what's your purpose?" "No, answer me first. Who are you? I mean, from what force?" "Dream." Chinyang spit out 2 words calmly. These 2 words seemed to be nightmare, and Moria's expression changed greatly when she heard it. He remembered the sea dragon some time ago. That was the strength of the 4 emperors. At sea, even the marine fleet couldn't do anything about him. It was terrifying. "I didn't expect to meet another Dream member today." 2.8. "Dream, what is your purpose of destroying the deep-sea prison?" Moria said cautiously. No matter what your purpose is, I will not participate. Today, I will pretend that I have never met you and will not inform Marine. That's it, go away." He refused without hesitation. He really didn't want to have anything to do with the dreamy lunatic. The last time he was just intercepting the marine fleet at sea, this time he was going to directly destroy the deep-sea prison. How is this different from a declaration of war? He is Shichibukai under the king, and he is barely included in the marine system. Isn't it courting death to do so? Hey. Chinyang raised his hand with a low smile, and immediately, the power of frost condensed in his palm. "Since you don't agree, then I have to kill you. Just right, your ability will restrain our dreamy shadow demon a little." As soon as the voice fell, the Lich King slapped his palm. Suddenly, the powerful force of frost turned into a blizzard, sweeping the entire castle. Grim Winter. Chapter 0103_Winter's Wrath. I read all the book reviews, but I couldn't reply on the web page, saying that my advertisements exceeded the limit and couldn't be sent out. Grim Winter. Accompanied by Chinyang's whispers, with him at the center, the blizzard quickly enveloped the entire large courtyard. Hearing the sound of freezing, the power of ice that spread out from under his feet froze the entire space in an instant. Seeing this scene, Gecko Moria couldn't help but feel awe in his heart. The power of frost that this man mastered seemed to be stronger than that of the talking bone dragon. You bastard! Moria yelled angrily, Shadow Mage. With a bang, the previously frozen shadow clone broke out of the ice, dodged and stopped in front of Moria's main body, spreading his arms to block the incoming wind and snow. He, you look pretty strong too, give me the shadow. I saw that half of the shadow clones turned into scattered bats, and the number was extremely large, and they flew towards Qin Yang overwhelmingly. Facing this blow, Qin Yang was unmoved, and even lacked interest in dodging. Behind him, the Ice Dragon Queen held her dragon head high, her wings spread out on her back, flapping, and setting off a hurricane. Whirring. The violent wind blew out, directly hitting the countless fit bats flying back. Not only that, the hurricane that was set off also contained the power of frost, and every bat that was blown was frozen by the frost, turning into ice sculptures and falling. With a bang, it fell to the ground and shattered 15 into powder. Huh! Gecko Moria's eyes were dignified, and only then did he face his opponent, but he didn't lose his mind, raised his hands, and immediately shouted. Shadow Gun! I saw the half-shadow avatar suddenly wriggling, and suddenly turned into a pitch-black spear, shooting towards Qin Yang. The speed of its change was extraordinary, and in an instant, it was already in front of him. Twice. Qin Yang whispered, his eyes emitting a faint blue light, and in the blink of an eye, his right hand was raised again and pressed lightly across the void. Immediately, the power of frost gathered and suddenly turned into a frost ray as thick as an arm. Whoosh! The ray hit the Shadowhorn gun, instantly freezing it into a popsicle, and the next moment, the ray shattered the Shadowhorn gun and went straight towards Moria. Seeing this, Gecko Moria's expression changed, and he hurriedly dodged to one side. He is huge, but his movements are not slow. He used the moment when the Shadowhorn spear was smashed to stop, and avoided this attack dangerously. Then, the frost ray suddenly passed through, and the entire magnificent castle was instantly pierced under this blow. Boom! If you stare at it from a distance, you can look at the whole situation. This frost ray penetrated the entire castle and penetrated several walls. The distance of its attack is a full 100 meters. Seeing this scene, Gecko Moria broke down in a cold sweat. He never imagined that the attack power of this strange armor was so amazing, and the control of the power of frost was comparable to Admiral Kuzan, no, even slightly more. Dow. Strange, it's impossible for the same two fruits to exist in the world, and he's definitely not eating frozen fruits. Moria to understand that the Skull Dragon is nothing but a racial talent, but this guy who calls himself the Lich King can also manipulate natural elements and subvert common sense, unless the other party is not a fruit person at all. There is still time to analyze my abilities. You are quite confident. Qin Yang said in a low voice. His figure moved, and people rushed out. No, to be precise, a phantom rushed out. Like a hallucination, Gecko Moria saw two Lich Kings in an instant. One was still standing there, while the other had already rushed over. What the hell is going on? He frowned angrily and took the initiative to punch the opponent. However, the expected attack did not come, and his punch directly penetrated the phantom of the Lich King. Fake. Sure enough, it's a hallucination, impossible. Just relying on his aura made me delusional. What kind of power is this? He couldn't understand, but the next moment, there was a look of horror in his eyes. I saw a palm, which was already close to his face, and the 5 fingers that wrapped Heikai spread out, as if there was a vortex of frost in the palm of his hand, absorbing everything into it. Farewell Winter Fury. The frost vortex in the palm absorbs all the frost power around it, and the blizzard set off by the previous, grim winter, seems to be the preparatory work for this blow. When all the power of frost turns into a small vortex in the palm of your hand, the center of the vortex seems to be the universe, which can freeze the human soul and consciousness together. Wait. Gecko Moria was shocked. He could already feel that this blow could kill him. Even if he didn't die, he would be sealed by this power. I know. I agree, I will join your plan. he hurriedly yelled. Hearing this, Qin turned his right hand, moved Winter's Wrath away from the opponent's face, and turned to one side. In the next second, all the power poured out. Boom! In an instant, the world seemed to turn into ice and snow, and the vortex shot from his palm turned into a shock, covering most of the ancient castle in an instant. The cold air is permeating, and just being around this kind of attack can feel the severe cold of dozens of degrees below zero. Gecko Moria had lingering fears, and he was almost finished. At this moment, when he shifted his head Vivi and looked at the old castle on the left-hand side, his expression became sluggish. I saw the huge dark castle, most of which has been frozen. No, not only the castle, but also the small half of the island behind it, has already turned into a world of ice and snow. This blow can be said to freeze a quarter of this terrifying ghost ship comparable to the size of an island in one breath. It has directly changed the geographical climate. Gecko Moria was shocked. This is the result of his temporary force. Suddenly, Moria felt a pain in his face, and saw a fist wrapped in dark armor hit him hard in the face. Boom! Gecko Moria flew upside down and directly knocked down a courtyard stone pillar. What are your last words? Qin maintained the gesture of taking a shot and looked at the other party calmly. Wait, I'll join you. Gecko Moria was furious, but he decided to admit it. The combination of one dragon and one person is too powerful, and he is not an opponent. The Lich King, I am willing to help you. He. Qin chuckled for a while. At your level, Marina's blind when he asked you to be Shichibukai. Shichibukai under the Seven Kings, aside from the special existence of the nine-tailed demon fox, Moria is a level at the bottom. The shadow fruit is indeed quite strong, but this person relies too much on the fruit's ability, and his comprehensive combat power is not as good as that of Doflamingo. In this regard, Moria could not refute at all. Since you agree, let me spare your life for the time being. Qin said calmly. He plans to let Moria contribute first, and then kill it later. After all, the deep-sea prison has admiral-level combat power, and there will be someone to restrain him, and he needs to find Caesar Current. Hearing this, Moria breathed a sigh of relief, but her heart was filled with grief and anger. Whoever he provokes, who stays in his old nest, will be approached by the dream murderer, not only beaten, but also trying to help the other party, which is pitiful. Bastard, these dreamy lunatics, all of them are so strong. He cursed angrily in his heart, hoping that a thunderbolt would fall from the sky and kill the dragon in front of him. However, just thinking about it, he wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and stood up slowly. When do I start? I need preparation time. All my zombie soldiers have been destroyed by you. In silence, Moria took the role. 7 days later. Qin glanced at him. As for your zombie army, no need. My undead army is enough to handle it. Legion of the Undead. Moria was stunned. Come out, my allies. With a light drink, I saw the 60 zombies that had been frozen before, all of which shook the surface ice wall. From their mouths, dark shadows flew out one after another, and then their bodies rotted, and white bones crawled out of their bodies. The next moment, the 60 fresh skeleton soldiers knelt down in unison, paying tribute to the Lich King. Seeing this, Gecko Moria fell into a sluggishness. Such a bizarre scene made him horrified. What a joke. My zombie turned into his army in no time. Chapter 0104_Army of the Dead. My zombie army. 10,000 draft horses galloped past Moria's mind. The moment before, it was still the 60 zombies he had managed to create. In the blink of an eye, the Lich King gave an order, and they all betrayed and became the enemy's army of skeletons. Qin ignored him, but looked at the skeleton soldier. With a thought, he split 600 soul power and began to strengthen according to the average of 10 per weapon. In just a few seconds, this group of skeleton recruits advanced one by one, becoming elite skeletons with dark skeletons and bone blades. You stay here for now. Qin gave the order in a deep voice, then looked at Gecko Moria, and said, these 60 skeleton soldiers, put them with you first. I'll be back in a week, and we'll be on the move. Do you understand? I see. Moria twitched the corners of her mouth and nodded. Hearing this, Qin stopped talking and jumped to the top of the Ice Dragon Queen's head. Let's go. Yes, King. The Queen glanced at Moria contemptuously, and with a flick of her bone wings, she flew up and disappeared into the thick fog in an instant. Sizzle, sizzle. Suddenly, a unique laughter came from behind a door in the big courtyard, and then, a man with an oval long nose came out. Sir Moria, this guy is too arrogant. Why don't we give the information to Marine and let him Marine to deal with him? Dr. Hogbach, Gecko Moria glanced at him, his eyes gloomy. You don't even know who he is. He is not alone, there is a huge mysterious force behind him, and Marine can't do anything about them. Quote. Do you really want to participate in the operation to destroy the big prison? It is the strongest prison in the world. A voice sounded out of thin air, and a figure slowly appeared in the space ahead. Absalom, Moria grinned, you came just in time, and you will follow me when the time comes. At a critical moment, you may also need your ability. Yes, Lord Moria. Think about it carefully, the deep-sea prison, there are strong people everywhere, monsters are in groups, and the shadows and corpses are very delicious. Not to mention Gecko Moria's little abacus, Qin took the Ice Dragon Queen and quickly left the terrifying bark. Between him and Moria was not a peer-to-peer battle, and his own combat power was basically hanging on the opposite side. However, after the fight, Qin still found something wrong. What about Frostmourne? Qin pondered. Where's my sword? Without this sword, I can't exert my peak combat power at all. Frostmourne, a cursed sword, can be said to be diametrically opposed to the Holy Sword, Oath of Victory, but without this sword, the Lich King's combat power would indeed be unable to reach its peak. Could it be a 4-star capability? Qin had no choice but to think so. Now that his combat power is no problem to fight against Admiral, it is almost the same level as the 9-tailed demon fox. The only feature is that he can create and summon the undead army. Don't think about this for now, you have to take advantage of these 7 days to collect as much soul power as possible. Immediately, Qin began to act step by step. First priority. Fortunately, in the past countless years, the number of people who have died is unknown, and the fragments of soul power are very rich. For 7 days in a row, Qin almost walked around this sea area and collected a huge amount of soul power. Time flies, in a blink of an eye, 7 High Queen of Heaven. Late at night, 2 a.m. The dense fog filled the sea, above the surrounding walls of the deep-sea prison, and the observation towers in the south, and northwest. The deep-sea prison, also known as Impelton and Impel Down, is divided into 6 floors. The further down the layers are, the stronger the prisoners are, and the more vicious the crimes they commit. However, only the first layer is exposed above the sea. It is used to prevent sea kings from attacking in the sea. At this moment, in the thick fog, a huge black shadow is slowly emerging from the front of the big prison. Many soldiers in charge of the vigil notice the abnormality at the first time, and immediately 2 bright lights hit the spot, illuminating the location. A sea king. No, is it the shadow of the ship? What a joke, this is a deep-sea prison, located in the Trinity Current. How can ships come into this sea area? Many conversations sounded, and the soldiers showed a look of alertness and approached the entrance one after another. The Delta Current is a natural barrier, similar to the Windless Belt, and it is impossible to enter this sea area without special means. After more than 10 seconds, the dark shadow in the thick fog was finally illuminated by the bright light, and immediately, everyone could see it clearly. It was a ship, much larger than the average warship, and the whole ship looked very dilapidated, with damaged sails, masts, decks, and even the hull. On the deck of that ship, there was a green spot of light. Shish, could it be a ghost ship? Above the wall, a soldier said in shock. This vigil team, but more than 20 people, gathered together at this moment, and they all felt terrified. The prison itself is a gloomy place, infected by the atmosphere, and seeing such a strange ship with their own eyes, everyone can't help but swallow their saliva. It's approaching, it's about to hit. A squad leader said in a deep voice. Get ready to sound the alarm, just in case. However, at this moment, a soldier screamed loudly, pointed to somewhere above the sky, and shouted, Quick, quick look, heaven. Hearing this, everyone looked at them in unison, and then they all looked horrified. A dragon-flying dragon, without flesh and blood, covered in bones, with a faint blue ghost fire in the chest, flapping its wings, it has already flew over the city wall without knowing when. Not good. Enemy attack. Hurry up and sound the alarm. The team leader was the first to return to his senses, and he shouted and ordered. At this moment, the flying dragon in the sky suddenly opened its mouth, and the power of ice crystals condensed in its mouth. The next moment, a roar. Frost bomb. This dragon breathed down, and the power of frost condensed into a huge ice crystal snowball, which slammed into the city wall. Then, it exploded. Boom. The blizzard raged, and the city wall was first frozen, and then, under the power of the explosion, an opening was opened in an instant. In the direction of the front door, the wall collapsed, and the soldiers on it died in an instant. He is an ally. There is nothing more reliable than this skull dragon. On the ghost ship, a strange laughter came out. Moria hid in the shadows and gave orders to a group of skeleton soldiers in front of her. Come on, army of the undead. He shouted imposingly, but none of the skeleton soldiers listened to his words. Above the sky, the voice of the Lich King floated down. Undead Legion, charge. Roar. Immediately, all the skeleton soldiers moved in unison, their eyes glowing with green light, and they all carried bone knives, leapt across a distance of 5 or 6 meters, and jumped into the port of Impel Down. At the same time, a piercing alarm sounded, and the whining sound spread throughout the first floor of Impel Down's prison in an instant. Inside Impel Down, in a lounge, a tall man with horns on his head and bat wings on his back suddenly woke up. He opened his eyes and spit out a cloud of purple poison. What's the matter? Why did the alarm sound? Boom. The door was pushed open, and a jailer rushed in a panic. It's bad, Deputy Director Magellan. A group of monsters broke the outer city wall and have entered the Impel Down. What? The man known as Magellan was stunned, then got up and walked out of the room. Who was so daring to attack the absolute defense of the deep-sea prison? It's monsters, skeletons, undead eyes glowing green, and there's a bone dragon. After speaking, the jailer inhaled the purple poisonous gas and was stunned by the poison. Seeing that he had lost his voice, Magellan turned around and slammed his fist on the wall in anger. Bastard intruder! Poison! I can't spare you! He roared angrily, and between his words, another piece of poisonous gas was sprayed out. The other side. Qinyong sat cross-legged on the dragon head, looking at the battle below leisurely. At the entrance, the army of undead had already started a battle with the prison guards. Every minute and every second, some strangers died, and the corpses had gradually piled up. Seeing this, Qinyong raised his right hand and whispered in his mouth, "Resurrect me, my allies." In an instant, the corpses below stood up one by one, their terrifying bodies were rotting, and fresh skeletons were joining the battlefield. The undead army pushed them down. Chapter 0105_Shiryu of the Rain. Impel Down, the undead army and the prison guards had a head-to-head battle. Qinyong brought 1,000 skeleton soldiers at a time, of which 500 were elite skeletons. At this moment, this undead army, which is not afraid of death, pours into the gate again and again. In the face of this kind of undead skeleton soldiers, the garrison army was retreating steadily, and they were in a hurry to fight, and they didn't understand the difficulty of the undead at all. Just a face-to-face, the formation was washed away, and the gate fell. Monster! A skeleton with green eyes, what the hell is it? The sound of panic continued to sound, and these soldiers were frightened by the scenes in front of them. A squad leader smashed a skeleton with one stick. However, in the next moment, these shattered skeletons recondensed again, and the pitch-black bone blade stabbed to kill without hesitation. Puff! The captain's eyes widened, he vomited blood, and fell down weakly. Seeing this, the group of Marines behind them were shocked and took a few steps back. Not good. These black skeletons can be resurrected. I'm afraid normal attacks are useless. They can only be smashed into pieces with one blow. The number of soldiers guarding is less than 1,000 people, and it is difficult to resist this kind of undead army that is not afraid of death. They retreated after a series of battles, and were quickly attacked into the entrance hall. Suddenly, the support of the rear 883 party was in place, and a musket brigade was long overdue. They set up their long guns from a distance, cut in from the side, and then pulled the trigger in an orderly manner. Bang bang bang. The gunshots sounded continuously, and in an instant, this 100-person team poured a rain-like amount of bullets towards the undead army. Immediately, a row of ordinary skeletons rushing to the front shattered dozens of pieces in an instant. Before waiting for the undead to make the next wave of sprints, another musket team entered the field on the right side, and the same bullets poured out like rain. In an instant, most of the cannon fodder skeletons in the front row were killed or injured. Seeing this, the first-floor garrison captain breathed a sigh of relief and said, "The white skeletons can be killed, and the black skeletons will be resurrected. It needs to be blown to pieces in an instant. Quick, let the artillery team get ready." Behind it, the position of a suspension bridge, the land-based artillery on it, is slowly being arranged. But at this moment, all the skeleton soldiers suddenly stopped, and they made way to the left and right, as if to welcome someone. What? All the soldiers were stunned and looked at the broken door in unison. I saw a piece of cold air coming first, followed by the sound of footsteps and heavy armor walking. Boom, boom, boom. Walking out of the fog-colored cold air were 3 tall figures. The one in the middle is dressed in dark armor and wears the lich crown. Under the helmet, his eyes emit a faint blue mist. As he walks, it naturally emits endless cold air, but wherever he walks, the ground has condensed into ice. On the left-hand side, there is a taller figure, nearly 7 meters tall, looks like a devil, has 2 horns on the side of the forehead, and has a rather weird fiery hairstyle. He Lich King, I have to admit, your undead army is really useful. It's stronger than my zombie army. Hearing this, Doflamingo took 28 steps and let out a deep laugh, fur. In fact, I would like to ask why Ninetails didn't participate. Qin Yang's voice was cold and he said calmly, "The captain judged that he was not suitable for this action, so he dispatched me and her. Do you have any dissatisfaction?" "No, I'm just more curious about the dream. How many forces do you have hidden in the dark?" Doflamingo whispered. The 9-tailed demon fox did not come, but a new cadre and a bone dragon came. The fog shrouded in the dream pirates not only did not fade, but instead became more mysterious and terrifying as time passed. A sea dragon, comparable to the 4 emperors, is in charge of the sea beast army. A lich king who controls frost and has an army of undead under his command. Doflamingo has no doubts that this is by no means the whole of the dream, and it may even be just iceberg. But at this time, looking at the 3 people who suddenly appeared, the guarding soldiers widened their eyes, showing an incredible look. "You're," the captain of the garrison roared angrily, "Your Majesty Shichibukai. Gecko Moria, Don Quixote Doflamingo. Why attack the deep-sea prison? Furfur, who knows, you're going to die anyway." Doflamingo grinned. He still cares about Shichibukai's title, so he won't stay alive. "Don't talk nonsense, before their main force arrives, hurry up," Qin Yang said softly, looking at the broken cannon fodder in the front row. Immediately, he raised his right hand, and the power of the soul swept away, covering all the dead skeleton soldiers. "Resurrect, my soldier." As soon as the voice fell, the broken bones of the fallen undead shook violently, and then the bones condensed with each other, and they recovered together. Not only that, but also the white corpses on the ground. At this moment, they also got up strangely. The flesh and blood on their bodies faded away, revealing the white bones. The army of the undead, from the initial 1,000 people, has expanded to 1,300 people. Seeing this, the garrison captain paled in horror. You are the controller. Can these monsters be resurrected infinitely? Who knows? Qinyang didn't bother to answer. He raised his right palm high, the power of frost on it condensed, and the next moment, it suddenly turned into a punch and slammed into the ground under his feet. Boom! First, the ground was frozen, and then it was instantly shattered. The thick prison wall was suddenly punched out with a large hole several meters in diameter. Let's go. Qinyang gave an order from left to right and jumped first. Seeing this, Moria and Doflamingo got on their heels and entered the lower space together. And as soon as they left, the army of skeletons went berserk again and launched a new wave of offensive. Quick, contact the chief guard. The chief guard looked very ugly. He had a bad premonition that a major event would happen tonight. The deep-sea prison, the second underground floor, the monster hell. There are all kinds of ferocious beasts placed here. The mortals who are imprisoned on this floor live in the shadow of the beasts every day, and they will become food and delicious food at any time. At this moment, a monster crawling on the corridor, with a human face and a lion body, it has just finished eating a few prisoners who want to escape from prison, and it is dozing at the moment. Suddenly, its ears moved, and it looked up. Hearing a loud bang, the stone wall above his head shattered, and 3 figures fell one after another. Shadow gun. A strange laughter sounded, and suddenly, a black shadow spread out and came under the body of the Sphinx. Roar. It roared, but the sound stopped abruptly. From its abdomen, a pitch-black spear pierced out, directly smashing and piercing its heart. Then, the 3 figures landed lightly. Is this the Sphinx? Doflamingo snorted. I've heard that the overlord on the 2nd floor of the deep-sea prison didn't expect to be killed so easily. Just as he finished speaking, suddenly, a magnetic laughter sounded under an orange-yellow stone pillar not far away. HMPH, the 3 of you are the intruders. Hearing this, the 3 Qinyang looked sideways. It was a middle-aged man with a cigar in his mouth, wearing a coat and a military cap, sitting cross-legged, wiping a blood-stained long sword in his hand. I just dealt with a few thieves who wanted to escape from prison. It's a coincidence that you just broke into my range of activities. The man stood up slowly, pushed his military cap, and showed a bloodthirsty smile. 3. Meeting for the first time, I'm the head guard here, Shiryu of the Rain. Chapter 0106_Lord, you finally came to save me. Shiryu of Rain. The 3 of Qinyang looked at the sword holder not far away, and there was no surprise on their faces. Before attacking the big prison, the 3 people knew about the main characters in the prison. The head guard, deputy head guard, director, and deputy director had to face at least 4 slightly troublesome characters. Of course, to be more precise, 3. Warden, swordsman, Shiryu of the Rain. The deputy director, the person with the ability of poisonous fruit, Magellan. And, lastly, the mysterious director. Shiryu of the Rain, and without any nonsense, turned around and walked towards the entrance of the next floor. Moria, you stop him. Doflamingo, let's move on to the next level. Shiryu of the Rain couldn't hold back. He threw a knife flower, threw the blood from the blade, and then moved, and it was already wrapped around like a phantom. Want to run? I brought 2 Shichibukai to attack the prison, you are the leader. There was a bloodthirsty smile on the corner of his mouth, murderous aura, and when he approached Qinyang's back, a sword suddenly stabbed out. It's boring anyway, why don't you play with me? The edge is on the back. Qinyang looked sideways, and at the same time his left hand stretched out behind his back, and the power of frost in his palm quickly condensed. While walking, he did not stop a step, and whispered in his mouth, Frost Nova. Boom! Seeing that the sword was about to pierce the armor, the power of frost in Qin Yang's palm suddenly exploded. Like a shock wave, the ice ring visible to the naked eye spread out in a fan shape. Shiryu of the rain couldn't help but change slightly. Logia. He paused and retreated suddenly. However, compared to the speed of Frost Nova's spread, his escape speed was as slow as a snail. First, the long sword was frozen. Then, frost condensed on his arms, and his feet were unable to move. Finally, the whole person turned into an ice sculpture. He is expected of the Lich King, it was easily solved. Moria smiled strangely, not intending to shoot yet. You'd better stop him or I don't mind taking you on the road together. Qin Yang glanced at him without paying too much attention. Immediately, he and Doflamingo quickly left the place. Shiryu of Rain was only temporarily frozen, and Frost Nova could not seal his soul and consciousness together, so he could only hold the opponent for a few seconds. But these few seconds were enough for the two of them. After a few moments of dodging, Qin Yang and the two quickly disappeared. The deep-sea prison has a total of 6 underground floors. The whole shape is like a round platform, the top is small and the bottom is big. The further down you go, the larger the space on each floor. Gurren Hell on the first floor, the Demon Beast Hell on the second floor is twice as big, and the guards are stronger. Aside from the jailer patrol, all kinds of monsters are very common. However, these are nothing to Qin Yang and the two of them. They pushed it all the way and finally found the stairs leading to the lower floor. How many floors is Caesar current being held on? Doflamingo followed suit and asked, won't he be held on the 6th floor? I don't know, it's at least 4 floors, or even 5 floors. Qin Yang was very calm. When he went down the stairs, he didn't feel any sense of urgency at all. He walked very leisurely. This is the 3rd floor of Hunger Hell. You search for the prison on this floor, if not, continue to the next floor. How about you? I'm going to the 4th floor. 1. Fur, there is the director's office on the 4th floor, you'd better be careful. D. Predict. Doflamingo laughed and said that he agreed to such an arrangement. Afterwards, the two acted separately. M. Qin Yang found the stairs leading to the lower floor, so he walked down without staying on the 3rd floor. Deep-sea prison, 4 underground floors, scorching hell. As soon as I set foot here, I was greeted with a burst of heat. As if the whole person is surrounded by a huge boiler, the high temperature of dozens of Baidu makes the air extremely dry, and most people can't even breathe smoothly. The pirates who can be imprisoned here are already well-known characters, with a combat power of tens of millions, or even close to 100 million. It's really unpleasant air. Qin Yang gently blew out his breath, and immediately cooled the space within a radius of tens of meters, directly from the high temperature to the freezing point. Shaking his head, Qin Yang maintained the cold output and walked up. 4th floor space is very huge, almost the size of 8 Gurren Hells. To find a specific prisoner in such a large place is tantamount to looking for a needle in a haystack. Suddenly, there were bursts of exclamations not far away, and there was surprise in the sound. Hey, little brother over there, are you the one who caused the prison riot? Riot. Qin Yang stopped, looked sideways, and saw 5 or 6 pirates clutching the iron bars in the prison on the left-hand side, all excited. Well, the prison guards on the 4th floor were mobilized just now. At first glance, we knew that they were supporting the upper floors, probably to suppress some kind of riot. Mozigan said excitedly, quick, little brother, break this cage. Let us go. Out. Oh, let you out, why? Qin Yang looked at the other party playfully, without any rush. Hearing this, a muscular man suddenly became furious. Boy, when I was a pirate, you were still a drop of liquid. Hurry up and let me go, I will take you to escape. Before his words were finished, Qin Yang's eyes narrowed and he glared. In an instant, the big man felt that the world was spinning, and chaos appeared in his consciousness, as if his soul was about to be extracted. He was terrified, and fell to the ground weakly, until Qin Yang retracted his gaze. Then he was sweating profusely leaning against the railing, gasping for breath, his expression full of horror. The other prisoners shuddered when they saw it. What kind of terrifying character is this? A Buddha who has a bounty of 80 million is abolished with just one look. Huh. Qinyang raised his eyebrows and said, I can save my life under my soul harvest, how many times? He. He Isho, the prisoners grow creepier. Mozigan said cautiously, Sir, did you escape from the 6th floor? In his opinion, only the legendary pirates on the 6th floor have such terrifying power. Perhaps, my lord, your strength is strong, but it is difficult to escape if you are only strong here. You need someone who knows the way. For example, my brother. You are much more interesting. Qinyang chuckled, walked over, and then swept his palm. With a bang, the iron bars of the prison were cut off by his palm. I ask you, do you know where a bald man named Barian is locked up? His bounty is 75 million. No accident, it's on the 4th floor. Barian. Mozigan was stunned, pondered for a while, and said, I have occasionally seen a bald head often taken away by the jailer, probably for torture. I don't know if it is the person you said. Take me there. Qinyang ordered in a low voice, then looked at the other prisoners, as for you, go wherever you like. When a few people heard it, they were overjoyed. Qinyang was too lazy to deal with it, and directly let Mozigan lead the way. As we walked along, we could see the cells everywhere. The prisoners inside saw Qinyang and the two walking by, and they roared, threatened, or prayed for their liberation. After walking for more than 10 minutes, Mozigan stopped in front of a special cell. There was only one person detained in the cell, who was bald and wearing prison uniforms, and was very lethargic. Sir, it's him. However, this cell is made by sea stone, you have to be careful. Mozigan said in a low voice. Sea stone. Qinyang was speechless for a moment. The bald man is not a capable person, but he is only slightly related to the dream, so he is treated so seriously. Thinking of this, he raised his right hand, turned his palm into a fist, wrapped in the power of frost, and the next moment, he suddenly bombarded. Boom! A punch fell, and the entire cell was shaken. The bald man woke up, and when he looked up, he was shocked to find that a large hole had been opened in this cell. A tall figure in dark armor walked in. This person exudes a mysterious majesty, as if a king is king. You, who are you? The bald man's heart trembled. Ying Yao is my subordinate, I will come to rescue you this time. Qinyang said calmly. And hearing this, especially hearing the name Shadow Demon, the bald man's expression gradually changed from alert and shocked to ecstasy. He took a brisk walk, scrambled and ran, hugged Qinyang's thigh, and said with snot and tears. Master, you're finally here. Juya asked me to wait, I've been waiting, the hateful marine tortures me every day, forcing me to ask about dreams information, but I haven't leaked a small sentence. Being hugged by a big man, especially the bald head, Qinyang felt disgusted and kicked out angrily. Don't talk nonsense, come with me. As soon as he finished speaking, there was a sudden burst of sneer. Go, where are you going? Qinyang looked sideways and calmly looked outside the cell, where, at some point, there was a shadowy man spitting out a snake letter. Who are you? I'm the director here, the intruder, I've been waiting for you for a long time. As soon as this person's voice fell, suddenly, a cage fell from the sky, and with a bang, Qinyang and the three were locked inside. Seeing this, Qinyang suddenly laughed. If this thing is useful, what do the jailers and guards do? As he said that, he stomped hard, and suddenly, the whole earth trembled. Break it for me. Chapter 0107_Frostmourne. Break it for me. With a low voice, Qinyang stomped on it, and suddenly, the whole earth shook violently. With the stepping point as the center, a frost storm swept across, and in an instant, everything in a radius of 100 meters was turned into a world of ice and snow. The man outside the cell raised his hand and narrowed his eyes to resist the chill, a similar ability to Kuzan. However, this won't destroy that special prison. Cage came out, only the sound of clack sounded, and the iron fence crystallized and shattered into pieces under Qin Yang's tap. Don't compare my frost power to Kuzan's frozen fruit. Qin Yang took a good time and walked out of the cell. Hiss ___________. My name is the Lich King. Qin Yang said indifferently, neither admitting nor denying it, commander of the Undead Legion. Since you took the initiative to bring it to your door, save me a lot of effort. Let me ask you a question. If the answer is satisfactory, I will spare your life. Quote. Hearing this, the man was stunned, then grinned, I've killed a lot of arrogant pirates like you, especially those on the 6th floor. Every one of them is fun. Seeing this, Qin Yang didn't bother to talk to him, and he moved his body, already bullying him. He had to fight quickly. The longer he dragged on, the harder it would be to fight. Hiss, my name is Blue Python, the director of the Great Prison Zone, mythical, snake fruit, candle 9 yin form. With a loud laugh, the man who called himself King Python suddenly raised his body. His arms were close to his body, as if they were integrated into it. His shuang legs were close together to form a thick snake tail, and blue snake scales appeared on the surface of his body. A giant monster with the body of a snake. Hi. Snake letter swallowed, several meters long, with a pair of snake pupils, looking at Qin Yang from a distance. Huh. Qin Yang's figure paused, and after looking at it a little, this person turned into Zhu Juyin, which was probably a creature between the snake type and the dragon type. It was not aesthetically pleasing and very ugly. It's far worse than the sea dragon. It's really ugly. Qin Yang couldn't help but snorted, but he didn't rush to do it. Although he admits that he is not false, if he is too reckless, he may suffer a loss. The Lich King, look me in the eyes. King Python shouted loudly, and a pair of cyan snake pupil eyes released a burst of brilliance. Qin Yang glanced at it, and was immediately attracted by these eyes, as if there were truths in the world. It was fascinating. Darkness is coming. King Python laughed loudly, and suddenly one eye closed. In an instant, Qin Yang lost all light, as if darkness had come, and could no longer see anything. Interesting ability. Qin Yang's tone was calm. Even if he suddenly lost his vision, he would not be able to shake him. Dao can't see anything clearly. What do you think of you who have become blind? Thinking. Qin Yang Isho took a step forward, and after a step, the whole person rushed out instantly, like a flash of lightning, leaving an afterimage. Seeing this, King Python's expression changed slightly. No matter how powerful a person is, if he suddenly loses one of his 5 senses, it is impossible to remain unshakable. This person is simply a monster, let alone shaken. He has launched an attack on his own initiative. In a daze, Qin Yang had already come to him, turned his right palm into a fist, wrapped in the power of frost, and punched it without hesitation. Boom! A punch hit the scale of the snake, but failed to penetrate it, but the power of frost wrapped around the punch spread rapidly. Caw caw caw. King Python was surprised to find that the part where he was hit was completely immobile, and the power of frost seemed to be able to seal his soul. Looking for death. He snorted angrily, flicked the tail of the snake, lifted it, and slapped Qin Yang heavily. As if he could sense all this, Qin Yang's left hand suddenly lifted. The next moment, bang! The sturdy snake tail slapped on the armor of the left arm, and the incomparably heavy force instantly cracked the ground under Qin Yang's feet, as if it would pierce through this layer of hell. Brutal strength is not as good as Garp. Qin Yang secretly said in his heart. One retreated and quickly got out of the opponent's attack range. Seeing this, King Python's eyes were cold. It seems that you are in control of observation hockey. If that's the case, then you will lose your hearing and touch. He opened his mouth wide, and suddenly thick black smoke rolled and roared, and in an instant, a huge black mist gushed out. Dark maze. Seemingly inexhaustible, the dark mist that King Python spit out directly filled all the space within sight. Ah! In the cell not far away, the exclamations of prisoners were heard. Damn it, that's the power of that damn thing. Bastard, this is trying to kill us. The constant voices fell in Qin Yang's ears, but they became weaker and weaker. Not only that, he found that his senses were declining, and the whole person seemed to have fallen into a maze, and he was isolated. Obviously it's Zone, but he has the same peculiar ability as Paramesha. Qin Yang thought to himself, mythical is really powerful. Suddenly, a thick snake tail swept over. With his senses weakened, Rao, the Lich King, didn't have time to react and was directly repelled by a tail. Hiss of a head, are you having a headache right now? We'll go to the right, if you want to run away, maybe people will lie down, let me enjoy your funny performance. As soon as his voice fell, a sigh came from the black fog. I am the Lich King, the Lord of all undead. Qin Yang patted his armor and stood up slowly. I control the soul and deprive it, your little tricks are useless. What? King Python suddenly frowned. He felt that something was wrong. Most people were trapped in the dark corridor, and basically couldn't even hear the sound, but this person was still able to talk to him. Do you think I'm talking with my mouth? I'm communicating directly with you with my soul. Qin Yang spread out his palms, and the dark armor around his body emitted a faint blue light. These rays of light were soul power, and they condensed between his palms. 100 units, 500 units, 1000 units, 5000 units, 1,020,000. I'm tired of your tricks, and I don't have time to play with you. Let me solve you in one go. Saying so, Qin Yang slapped the soul force in his palm to the ground. Boom. Full 50,000 soul power, 5 times the soul summoning of the Ice Dragon Queen Sindragosa. Appear, my allies. This is a creation of the void. Light dispelled the black fog of 5.1. The King Python was shocked, his complexion changed greatly, and his mind was shocked. He could feel that under those palms, something powerful was being born. All of a sudden, he felt the chilling air, the entire 4 layers of scorching hell. At this moment, the high temperature has disappeared, replaced by severe cold. The dry air has become icy biting, enough to freeze anything into an ice block. Centered on where Qin Yang stood, the scorching hell that has existed for many years is slowly turning into an extremely cold hell. This is an overall change. The closer to Qin Yang, the faster the change. Impossible. Wild Python's eyes widened, and he said incredulously, Logia's awakening. No, he is not an ability person. Qin Yang's eyes were calm. He plunged into the ground with one hand, grabbed a sword hilt, and slowly drew it out. The sword of the soul, the sword of the curse come out, Frostmourne. Whoosh. An evil weapon was born, and in an instant, the cold light was terrified. In an instant, the entire scorching hell turned into an extremely cold land. Chapter 0108 LV6 Infinite Hell. Frostmourne. Guangwa moved away, and the evil sword that came from the extreme cold finally appeared in front of King Python's eyes at this moment. It is an épée, with a skull at the edge of the sword. On its head, there are double horns that symbolize the devil, curled back, and the position of the eyes and mouth emits a strange blue light, as if it is absorbing the souls around it. King Python stared at this sword, as if his soul was falling to it, and as if disaster was brewing. From the blade, he saw death, disease, plague, natural disaster, destruction, coming. Huh. Suddenly, King Python groaned, and with his astonishing willpower, he forcibly retracted his gaze. What's this? I feel like I'm going to be obsessed with it as long as I keep watching. His face was startled. Qin Yang ignored him. He gently stroked Frostmourne's sword, and felt a power that devoured his soul. I thought wrong before. How can Frostmourne be a 4-star ability? This sword can steal soul, and I can harvest soul from the beginning, and soul power can be stored in the armor of the body, so Frostmourne was in me from the start, it just needed to be summoned. With a light wave, Frostmourne traverses wonderful tracks in the air. Unfortunately, 50,000 soul power, the summon 15 is not its complete body, but only has the most basic characteristics. Qin Yang whispered to himself, however, it doesn't matter, as long as you have enough soul power to strengthen it, it will only take minutes. Frostmourne is not the power of the 4-star Lich King, so what abilities will the 4-star Lich King unlock? Qin Yang guessed that, no surprise, it was one of Plague and Shadow. Of course, it's too far to think. He raised his eyes to look at King Python, then moved his body, raised his sword and charged towards him. Let me deal with you. Seeing this, King Python was horrified and awe-inspiring. This sword actually broke my dark night and dark corridor. Why? His heart was furious, and his anger was unstoppable, and he immediately opened his mouth and swallowed flames. Candlelight. Suddenly, there was a sea of fire ahead, and the flames spread forward, trying to trap Qin Yang in it. How dare you take out this little fire and be presumptuous? Qin Yang chuckled, and Frostmourne immediately swept out. In an instant, a blizzard swept through, and a little candle was extinguished when he turned around. But at this moment, King Python suddenly bullied himself. His big mouth opened, revealing sharp fangs, and biting down towards Qin Yang. You are seeking your own death. Qin Yang jumped up, without flinching, facing the opponent, stabbed with a sword. Ding! A sword stabbed above the fangs. King Python was shocked to find that the opponent blocked his attack with just one sword with one hand. You bastard! His eyes flashed a ferocious light, and the next moment, he breathed poisonous mist from his mouth. Go to hell. Facing this blow, Qin Yang seemed to have expected it. His left palm stretched forward, and the power of frost gathered in his palm. There was a sudden sound of clicking, and in an instant, an ice wall rose from the ground. Damn! Troublesome ability. King Python snorted angrily, bit down again, and he wanted to swallow the ice wall together with the Lich King. However, Qin Yang's movements were faster than him. As soon as he stepped, Qin Yang jumped up, jumped directly over the ice wall, escaped the bite of the King Python, and came to the sky above the opponent's head. It's over, give up your soul. With a low moan, Frostmourne suddenly emitted a dim light, like a vortex of the soul, and began to frantically absorb everything around it. Whoosh! It was as if a meteor fell, and the dim light flourished. Qin Yang held the heavy sword and fell straight towards the King Python. Feeling the fatal threat, King Python's pupils shrank immediately. However, at this time, he could no longer dodge. Puff! The heavy Frostmourne pierced Orochi's head easily, like cutting through the turf. King Python's screams sounded, but soon, the screams stopped abruptly. The basic feature of Frostmourne is soul absorption. At this moment, King Python's eyes have become dim and scattered, and his soul has been forcibly captured and bound in the sword. 500 units, such a strong soul force. Qin Yang said in surprise. This person is equivalent to the sum of the soul power of 500 people. He harvested the souls of many people before, but the largest one was only a dozen units. Compared with the current one, it was a world of difference. A person's soul can't be so different, it should be something else. Qin Yang withdrew Frostmourne, threw off the blood on the blade, then jumped off and walked towards the cage. Could it be because of those with devil fruit abilities that their soul power is hundreds of times that of ordinary people? This is a guess that is relatively easy to think of, and it is not difficult to verify it. Just kill an able person directly. However, there are more important things at the moment, and Qin Yang is not in a hurry. Big man. In the cell, the bald man shouted excitedly when he saw Qin Yang coming. This is a cadre, definitely a dream cadre, too strong. The director of the big prison has been killed. On the other hand, Mo Zigan's face was even more sluggish. Although he had guessed that Qin Yang was a legendary pirate from the 6th floor, now he has killed the director, which is unbelievable. Come with me. Qin Yang glanced at the two of them, then stopped on top of Mo Zigan's head. As for you, don't follow me. No, sir, Mo Zigan said quickly. You want to escape, I know the way. I can still help, I still have value, please take me to escape. Really? Qin Yang asked unmoved. Since that's the case, let me ask you, has a scientist been imprisoned recently? Marine, scientist. Mozigan was stunned, and then immediately said, I don't know, but the prisoner's detention records can be found in the director's office. I'll take you there. Lead the way. Qinyang nodded, and gently put Frostmourne down. Immediately, the cursed sword turned into a faint blue light and dissipated, and merged into the body again. Deep-sea prison, 6th floor, infinite hell. This layer is little known. Most of the prisoners, and even the jailers don't know that there is a 6th layer under the 5th layer of the extremely cold hell. The pirates imprisoned here are all monstrous evils, and any release is enough to overthrow a country. What's even more terrifying is that the infinite hell is just like the name. It is very huge, and the area is 20 times the size of a layer of Gurren hell. In such a vast area, I don't know how many prisoners are held, and I don't know how many people who used to be famous. In the center of the endless hell, a dark space, there are 12 cells, and each cell holds a person alone. In the aisle between the 12 cells, a pale man sat cross-legged. Suddenly, he shuddered, twitched violently, and a large amount of blood spilled from the corner of his mouth. Ha ha ha, King Python, are you injured? A surprised voice came from a cell. This is the most joyous thing this year, ha 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 ha. The main body is suppressing us here. Has the molting clone been killed outside? Who is it? I admire him very much. King Python, if you have the ability, let this uncle come out. Uncle, I will let you have one hand and one foot, and I can shoot you to death. There was a clamor in several cells. The man called King Python's eyes flashed. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, snorted coldly, and said, Shut up, I don't mind killing you. Saying so, he couldn't help holding his head. Damn, that sword is similar to Big Mom's soul fruit. It can steal souls. I feel like my memory is blurred. I seem to be missing something. What? King Python couldn't think of it at all. It just felt like this. I can't get out of here yet. Damn it, who is going to suppress that person? No, the crux of the question is, what is the purpose of their attack on the big prison? Chapter 0109_I save you. What does it have to do with you? Deep-sea prison, 4 underground floors. This place was originally scorching like a severe summer heat, but due to the awakening of the evil weapon Frostmourne, the climate changed and it turned into an extremely cold place. Anyone who is in the 4th floor, whether they are prisoners or guards, can clearly feel the raging power of frost in the air at this moment. This is an irreversible change. The central furnace is destroyed, extinguished, and sealed. In the future, this place will turn into a hell shrouded in ice and snow. At this moment, in a director's room in the 4th floor of hell, 3 monitors looked at the scene inside the monitor. All of them were shocked and looked horrified. In the monitor screen, the huge Zhu Juin had already died, and he had transformed back into a human form. That person was the director of the deep-sea prison, King Python. The director is dead. Impossible. The intruder is so strong that he can kill the director. There must be some conspiracy, damn it. The 3 of you said a word to me, looking very panicked. What to do? When the director left before, he gave an anti-eavesdropping phone bug. Can you directly contact the Marine headquarters and apply for support? We must apply for support, and now the 1st floor of Gurren's hell is about to fall, and those skeletons can't be killed at all. The 3 of them looked at each other, calmed down a little, and then all looked at a white phone bug on the table. All come, one of them said solemnly and walked over. However, at this moment, 747, boom. With a loud bang, the door was kicked open directly, and the 3 monitors looked shocked and turned their heads in shock. Prison uniform, it's you, bald. The bald-headed man sneered, but ignored it. Instead, he made way for a path, and then said with an apologetic smile on his face, Master, please. Master, be careful of the steps. Under the helmet, Qin Yang's expression was slightly subtle. He shook his head, and he walked to the front of the 3 monitors. I asked you a question, answer it, spare your life. The Lich King's voice was ghostly. low, and full of bewitching power. One gritted his teeth and said boldly, "Are you the intruder?" Qin Yang was noncommittal, stared directly at the man, and asked, "About 10 days ago, where is the scientist of the Marine headquarters, M. Caesar Current, who was sent here for custody?" I don't know." Under the mental pressure of the Lich King, the monitor was sweating profusely, opened his mouth, and shook his head firmly after a while. Hearing this, Qin Yang's eyes flashed, and some kind of strange force radiated toward the other party, and it was like the scythe of the god of death, which had already descended on the other party's head. "Really, I'm sorry." As soon as the voice fell, the monitor's pupils shrank. He was shocked to find that his body could not move. Not only that, his consciousness was blurring, and his soul seemed to be grabbed by a palm. Sean_pi. %. In the screams, the man's eyes turned white, and he fell to the ground so softly. Seeing this scene, the other two suddenly panicked without waiting for Qin Yang to ask questions, and one of them said directly, "Caesar Current, his situation is rather special. He is imprisoned in the 5th floor of the extreme cold hell. The cell number is 5099. Very well, I can sense that you are not lying." Qin Yang nodded with satisfaction, turned around and walked out of the director's room. As soon as he went out, Moxie Gantu was already waiting. "Sir, please come with me, I know the nearest way to the 5th floor." Meanwhile, the director indoors. The bald man let out a grinning grin. Suddenly, he punched out both of his fists and bombarded the two monitors' hearts. Suddenly, the two vomited blood and smashed the monitor directly. You don't keep your promises." One of them was pale, half dead. "HMPH, who do you think is standing in front of you?" "I'm a pirate." Bald man sneered, "I've had enough of your torture during this period of time. Besides, the one who promised not to kill you was the Lich King, and it has nothing to do with me. So, go to hell." After one blow, 2 lives were lost. Deep-sea prison, 5 underground floors, extremely cold hell. The prisoners on this floor are all pirates with a bounty of over 100 million. The prisoners on this floor are in an environment that is lower than that of the Great Ice Warehouse. In the long run, their bodies will suffer from severe frostbite until they die. Compared with the first 4 layers of hell, this layer is very mysterious and quiet. All the prisoners looked like they were waiting to die. The low temperature made them curl up and would not cause trouble easily. Only cell 5099 is special, probably because it has only been locked for 10 days, and the only prisoner in the cell has been shouting loudly, "Let me out, I'm a big scientist at the headquarters. That bastard, Baker Punk, even plotted against me. Let me out." The noisy man has dark blue long hair, looks like a ghost, his clothes look like gas, and he wears CC gloves on his hands. "HMPH, this idiot Baker Punk, I was afraid that my research results would subvert his position, so I did it privately." Speaking of which, the man who looked like a ghost suddenly stopped. Hey, he shouted for so long, but there was no response. It seems that there was a big commotion. This is a good opportunity to get over. "Humph, these idiots. Do you think the sea stone shackles can hold me? Who do you think I am?" His tone was conceited, and the thief looked left and right. After confirming that there was really no patrol nearby, he immediately wanted to act. But at this moment, a voice sounded. "Oh, do you still have the means to escape?" "Who?" Caesar Current looked like a cat whose tail had been stepped on, his hair standing on end in fright, his eyes turned to the right side, and a figure was slowly walking in the distance of the blade mist. After seeing the person coming, Caesar squinted his eyes. Hey, who are you?" "The one who saves you." Qin Yang's tone was calm. "I led the army and killed all the way, and finally found you." "Save me. Humph, who are you for me, do you need your help?" Caesar Current snorted disdainfully. Hearing this, Qin Yang suddenly smiled. "Very good, it seems that you haven't understood your situation yet, so use your body to memorize it a little." During the speech, Qin Yang reached out with one hand, passed through the cage, and directly grabs Caesar Conkalang's head. The next moment, soul siphon. The palm seems to be a vortex, madly devouring Caesar's soul. Feeling the tear-like pain on the soul level, Caesar Current suddenly screamed. Stop! Who are you? Who are you? You actually have the power to hit your soul. Have you learned well? Qinyang said in a playful tone, my name is the Lich King. The Lich King. I've never heard of it, but you dare to be king, are you a pirate? Caesar Current breathed a sigh of relief, but shook his head and said, why do you want to save me? I don't know you, and I don't know anything about you. Benefits can be given to you. You have. Qinyang opened his mouth lightly, swept his palm across it, and immediately, the railing of the cell was shattered with a single blow. If I save you, what does it have to do with you? As long as you are obedient, everything will be fine. So arrogant. Caesar Current was unhappy. Someone came to save him. Although he didn't know why, he was so unhappy. There are many conceited people, but arrogance is also very common, but it is the first time I have encountered someone as arrogant as the person in front of me. Run away first. Caesar Current snorted softly and was about to walk out of the cell and leave with this person. Then, find another opportunity to evacuate. However, just as he stepped out of the cell with his right foot, at this moment, 3 giant purple dragons galloped toward him in the distance. Poison Dragon. This giant dragon is ugly and majestic, and between its roars, it seems that it is ready to devour this area including Qinyang. Huh, it's Deputy Director Magellan. Qinyang turned sideways and raised his hand to set off a blizzard. Anyone, has he been killed? Chapter 0110-Invasion of the 6th Floor. Poison Dragon. The 3 purple flying dragons that came flying, like bullets ejected, flew out through the ice and snow, and landed on the top of Qinyang and the 2 of them. Who was killed? The face of the attack, Qinyang was in no hurry. With a wave of his hand, a blizzard broke out. At the same time, an ice wall rose from the ground, directly blocking the 2 sides. Puff! The poisonous dragon slammed into the ice wall, and immediately, the wall seemed to have encountered high temperature and was quickly evaporated. Huh! With a frown and suspicion, the next moment, a poisonous stream quickly shuttled in front. Poison Channel. After approaching Qinyang and the 2 of them, a large piece of purple poison rose from the ground and gathered a tall man. The man has long head and 2 feet, and bat wings on his back. After condensing and forming, he punched the ice wall with a powerful punch, and his eyes stared at Qinyang. Magellan, Qinyang looked as usual, looking at each other from a distance. Who did you kill to get here? Doflamingo, or Gecko Moria? HMPH, you gang of thieves launched a raid in the middle of the night, do you think a few of you can escape? Magellan breathed out poisonous gas and looked furious. Shichibukai, Gecko Moria has been suppressed by me, and you are next. Sure enough it was Moria. Qinyang murmured in his heart, this idiot just saved him a lot of hands and feet, and immediately said with a deep laugh, haha, just in time. Anyway, most of my mission has been completed, I will play with you a little Frostmourne. With a soft drink, Qinyang's right hand Wukong grasped, and suddenly, the huge soul force condensed into an evil weapon. The 2 of you take him to stay away, and he is affected by the battle. I can't handle it when he dies. Yes, my lord. Seeing that the 2 little thieves were taking Caesar Current and preparing to evacuate, Magellan immediately launched an attack. He took a deep breath, his stomach doubled, and the next moment, he spit out poison gas bullets all over the sky. Poison Pufferfish. Shish. The dense ball of poisonous gas, like a sudden downpour, enveloped the large space in front of it. Where to run? Seeing this, Qinyang grinned, clenched the hilt of the sword with both hands, and suddenly slashed a blow while charging forward. Whoosh! The cursed sword splits the space and hits a powerful slash that is visible to the naked eye. The force of frost is wrapped around the slash, and while the blizzard is set off, it quickly blows the poison ball into ashes. What? Magellan frowned and snorted coldly, swordsman. Since you have appeared in the 5th layer of hell, that means you have already encountered the director. Where are the others? Dead. Qin leaned in front of him and pierced out with a sword. No, it should be dead. However, the person who died may be a clone, or other doubles or something. The main body is still alive, right? Alive or not, Qin is just guessing. But with King Python's previously demonstrated combat power, he couldn't sit in the top 1 position in the big prison at all. Therefore, Qin would have guesses and suspicions. It was as if the first time he met Doflamingo, he was also misled by the opponent's clone ability. Really? Magellan's eyes were gloomy, and his body was all fluidized. Then I'm welcome. Poison Dragon. Roar. It seems that a backstab has grown on its back, and the backstab is divided into 3, turning into 3 purple dragons. The big dragon Zhang Yaowu grabbed and charged with one head, forcing Qin to retreat, and the other 2, one left and one right, blocked the dodging space. Yes, then I will summon a real dragon to fight with you. Seeing this, Qin immediately called Isho. He did not advance but retreated. At the same time, he raised his right hand high, and the power of the soul was rampant, forming a large-scale summoning ceremony. Appear, my allies, the Queen of the Ice Dragon. Boom. Soul power condensed, and after the explosion, a huge figure 60 to 70 meters long suddenly appeared. As soon as she appeared, she immediately fluttered her wings, causing strong winds and heavy snow, and at the same time, she opened the dragon's mouth, condensed the power of frost, turned into a dragon roar, and roared out. Stupid human beings, those who offend the king, I will execute them. Frost breath. The whistling blizzard turned into a devastating attack. The breath of the ice dragon collided head-on with the 3 gambling dragons. Suddenly, the 2 forces exploded, and there was a brief stalemate. What? Magellan's face was startled, and he couldn't believe it. Summoning creatures. What is this ability? This dragon has been hovering over the big prison before. Can it be summoned from a long distance? Stupid human being. I am the Queen of the Ice Dragon, Sindragosa. All those who stand in the way of the king should be damned. In the reprimand, the Ice Dragon Queen's wings shook, the bone wings fluttered under the fan, and 2 ice crystal spheres condensed and formed. Then, Chi-Chi passed through the gap between the poisonous dragons and flew to Magellan. Frozen bomb. Explode. Boom. In an instant, the ground shook and the mountains shook, and the 3-headed poisonous dragon was swallowed by the power of the explosion. The same was true for Magellan's body. The wind and snow raged, the impact spread, and everything was razed to the ground in a short moment. This shock even passed through the 5th floor of the prison and reached the 6th floor. I'll leave it to you here. Qin ordered. I'll go to the 6th floor to collect soul power. Yes, King. At the same time, 6 floors underground, endless hell. 12 cells in total darkness. King Python, who was sitting cross-legged, felt the vibration from above, and his expression changed suddenly. Sure enough, he's on the 5th floor. I'm afraid it's Magellan who fought him too bad. Magellan might die in the line of duty. His face was cloudy and uncertain, and in contrast, he was more optimistic about Shiryu of the Rain. Seemingly seeing his embarrassment, the prisoners in the cell suddenly laughed wildly. Kong Python, you have a headache. Go. If you don't go, the deep-sea prison will be pierced. Don't worry, sir, I will never do it. Escaped. Hey, if you talk nonsense again, I'll let you see Roger now. Roger. Ha 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 ha, that damn bastard. Who do you think the people here are? The silver medalist who lost to Roger back then. How much is there? But Roger is dead, we are alive and well. Very well, of course you are courting death. The mad python's eyes flashed, and he opened his mouth to spit out a cloud of black mist. This black mist seemed to have consciousness, and it actually included the people who spoke. Darkness. Another big pirate whispered. Wrapped by this thing, the 5 senses are disturbed, and maybe it will commit suicide inexplicably. It's good to know. Kwong Python snorted coldly, stood up slowly, and said, "I'm going to deal with the intruders. If I come back and find out that you guys have done anything superfluous, I don't mind cleaning all the prisoners in the 6 layers of infinite hell." Saying that, he flicked his sleeves and walked away. And as soon as he left, all the pirates suddenly laughed loudly, as if this was their only pleasure in their long years. To be honest, who came to rob the prison? I don't know. Lao Tzu's power has been disintegrated long ago. Being able to hit the 5th floor is also the handwriting of a major force in the world, maybe the person 10 years ago. 10 years ago, Golden Lion. This name made all pirates fall into silence. Although everyone was rebellious, what Golden Lion did back then was truly shocking. He is the #1 swordsman in the world, and he broke his feet just to escape from prison, and he really succeeded. Not to mention the situation here, Qin Yang left the Ice Dragon Queen and came to the 6th floor alone. As soon as he entered this hell, he felt a strong gloomy aura. "This is a fragment of the soul so rich." Qin Yang murmured in surprise, "Such a huge soul force, I am afraid it is far more than the Devil's Big Three." His demand for soul power is very large, and the amount here, according to a preliminary estimate, is probably close to 100,000. They made a fortune. The army of the undead has settled down. Chapter 0111_Abomination, Banshee, Death Knight. 100,000 souls. This is just Qin Yang's rough estimate. According to the density, it may be more than that. Stepping down the stairs, Frostmourne Vivi in Qin Yang's hand swept across, and suddenly, within a radius of thousands of meters, a faint blue light spot suddenly shone. At full speed, they converged towards the blade. 1,003,007,001,200. When all the soul fragments were absorbed, Qin Yang couldn't help but be a little surprised. How many people have died here? Within a sphere with a radius of thousands of meters, there are as many as 1,200 soul powers. No, it should be that everyone who died on the 6th floor was a strong person, so the soul power is also larger, and there are more fragments left behind. Thinking of this, Qin Yang immediately accelerated the pace. Every other area, he used Frostmourne to absorb it. Such a continuous practice caused his soul power reserve to increase rapidly. The 6th floor is very large, and it is impossible for Qin Yang to travel all over the place at once. He can only go in the direction with the strongest soul power. Along the way, many pirates in the cell discovered his existence. However, compared with the prisoners on the upper floors, the people here seemed very arrogant and would not take the initiative to talk to him. They walked past the cell. Suddenly, Qin Yang passed through a passage and entered a dark circular room. The surrounding of this room is like a clock, and there is a cell at each o'clock position, and there is only a single pirate in the cell. Not only that, the necks, waist and abdomen, wrists, legs, etc. of these big pirates are all locked by thick iron chains. It seems that he noticed Qin Yang's appearance. In one of the cells, a man with big ears suddenly said, "Who are you? Someone you haven't seen before." "Oh, that intruder." Hearing this, Qin Yang looked sideways, because the light was too weak. He couldn't fully see the face of the other party, just a pair of big long ears, but very unique. "Who are you?" "I'm a long-eared clan. I don't think I've seen you before." The man smiled and said, "You're an intruder, please, can you let me out? I've been imprisoned for 14 years. Now, I really want to go outside and have a look. You helped me once, and I will cover you in the future." "Cover me?" Qin Yang was speechless for a while. If the other party suggested that there is any treasure buried, he could give him a reward, and he might think about it. As if seeing his thoughts, in the cell next door, a thin and elderly old woman laughed strangely. "I advise you not to let him go. This guy offered a reward of 1.5 billion back then. One person slaughtered at least 4 countries, and hundreds of thousands of people died at his hands. If you let him out, he will be the first to die. We'll kill you." "Old witch, what nonsense are you talking about? Lao Tzu is the kind of person who does not keep his promises." "Shut up." Qin Yang glanced at him. his eyes swept to the other side, and soul harvest started immediately. As soon as he made contact with this look, the long-eared man's expression changed slightly, and he said in horror, "The fruit of the soul type. Soul and soul fruit. That bitch Charlotte Linlin is dead. Ha 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 ha, good death. Look at her upset." Chin Yong raised his eyebrows and said playfully, "She didn't die. Last time she ran fast, she accidentally slipped away." What? As soon as these words came out, the eyes of more than a dozen people present were condensed. Although most of them have been imprisoned for more than 10 years, occasionally they can obtain outside information, and they also know that Charlotte Linlin has become the 4th emperor of the New World. And looking at the meaning of this armored man, it seems that he almost killed her. "Who are you underscore 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 underscore? How could he be that idiot Kaido?" Someone hummed. "I know." Kaido turned to ashes. "My name is the Lich King." Chin Yong said softly. The voice seemed to come from Juyu, and it hit the soul directly. "The 12 of you were all famous big pirates back then, right? If you were a careerist, maybe they would consider letting you go, but it's a pity that you met me." Speaking of which, Chin Yong took Frostmourne and walked towards the long-eared man's cell. "Just right, my undead army lacks excellent corpses, so I'll take you to the knife." Swish. The sword light flashed, and the iron fence, which was made of fine iron, was comparable to the strength of diamonds. Under this sword, it broke instantly. Seeing this scene, the long-eared man was taken aback. What weapon is so sharp it's not a matter of relying on brute force, but this sword? This is the cell where they are imprisoned, let alone swords, even with a lot of explosives, the most top-level prison can't be opened, and it was broken so easily. Chin Yong walked towards the other party step by step, looked directly at him, and stabbed the man in the chest with a sword without hesitation. However, the next moment, ding! A sword pierced, but it seemed to touch the steel, staying on the surface of the opponent's skin, unable to enter. He, idiot, if you can kill us so easily, do you think that mad python won't do it?" The sophomore looked at each other disdainfully. "Hockey." Chin Yang's face was as usual and his tone was calm. "Soul harvest." Suddenly, Frostmourne shone with dazzling blue light, as if transformed into a maelstrom, ripping at the soul of the long-eared man. "What?" The long-eared man's eyes widened, his whole body suddenly froze, and the attack from the soul level made his hockey defense useless. Damn, you bastard, if I hadn't been trapped, one hand would be enough to kill you." Ah! He struggled and cursed, and even under the suppression of soul harvest, he shouted for half a minute, and finally lowered his head completely and couldn't rest his eyes. 1,000 soul power. Chin Yong opened his mouth and was a little surprised. This is 1,000 times the strength of the soul of an ordinary person, which is terrifying. "Long Ear is dead," someone whispered in the opposite cell. "Who asked him to provoke him? Do you think the other person is the fool of King Python? Looking at what he means, it seems that he is going to kill us all." The crowd fell silent for a while. "Relax, although you will die, you will be reborn in the form of undead. I have given you a chance to live again." Chin Yong let out a low laugh, the blade pressed against the long-eared man's chest, and a burst of soul power poured into it. "Resurrection, my allies." Boom. Suddenly, a clear and audible heartbeat sounded, and after injecting 1,000 soul power in one breath, the long-eared man's body changed by 0.7. The first is the face. The muscles began to swell and twist, turning into a fat pig-like head. At the same time, there was slight decay all over his body. "What's the situation?" someone in the opposite cell muttered in shock. "Just now, the long-eared man did die, but now, he is alive again. No, accurately, not alive, but turned into another life form." "Abomination," Chin Yong whispered. 1,000 soul power, plus this powerful corpse, turned out to be hatred. Chin Yong turned his eyes and walked to the other cells. "Everyone, don't resist, resisting is meaningless. All of you, join my undead army." A quarter of an hour later. "Abomination, Banshee, Death Knight. The middle and senior cadres of the Undead Legion were born one by one. 12 people stood in a row, knelt down on one knee, and gave Qin Yang a gift of allegiance. King, we join your army and swear allegiance to the Undead Army. Chapter 0112-Prison Riot. Hang for 2 days, but it's useless, I have to continue to hang tomorrow. Oh, hollow square, oh. King, we join your army and swear allegiance to the Undead Army. 12 newly born undead, after breaking free from the shackles of the cage, stood in front of Qin Yang, knelt down on one knee, and respectfully bowed their allegiance. Qin Yang looked at them quietly. Among the 12 undead, there were 3 liches, 3 abominations, 3 gargoyles, 2 death knights, and 1 banshee. Abomination, lich, gargoyle, these 3 are all 1,000 soul units, the formation is random, and the death knight is 2,000 soul power. As for the last banshee, Qin Yang thought to himself that the banshee was the skinny old woman from before, and the last successful summon cost 3,000 soul power. This is a bit beyond Qin Yang's expectations. The soul power consumed by a low-level undead like the banshee is even higher than that of the death knight. Thinking like this, Qin Yang looked at the banshee and asked, "What ability do you have?" King, I currently only have one ability, mind control. Banshee's voice was sharp, and she replied respectfully, I have no fighting power, and I am also very fragile. There is only one ability. Literally, I can control the souls of others. Whether I can succeed or not depends on the strength of the will of the control object. Mind control. Qin Yang raised his eyebrows. This ability is much better than pure combat power, and he can do a lot of things. Very good, you are directly under my command. Qin Yang nodded with satisfaction, and then said to the other 11 people, as for you, in addition to accepting orders from me, you will temporarily belong to the Ice Dragon Queen's men. Yes, King. 11 nodded quickly. Unlike ordinary skeletons, these 11 people were very powerful during their lifetimes, so after turning into undead, they still retain some of the memories and characters they had when they were alive. However, it doesn't matter. Qin Yang can resurrect them or kill them with a single thought. There is no possibility of betrayal and disobedience to orders. There are many excellent corpses here. You come with me and continue to grow the undead natural disaster. After giving an order, Qin Yang turned around and left the small clock prison. He walked, he said in a deep voice, you are far from being as powerful as you were before, but I can strengthen you and make you gradually stronger, provided that you have completed the tasks I assigned. Yes, King, your orders are supreme. All beings that disobey you are our enemies. The 12 people are very clear about the current situation. The people in front of them are existences beyond the level of human life. When they turned into undead, they also understood what an undead is. Qin Yang nodded and gave an order calmly, saying, now, I'll give you the first task to kill all the prisoners on the 6th floor. Yes. Immediately, the 12 began to act, and after they rushed out of the small prison of the clock, a round of massacres began quietly. After a while, screams and roars came. Qin Yang walked slowly. On the way, wherever he passed, blood flowed into rivers. While collecting soul power, he resurrected the dead body. The only regret is that the success rate of transforming the undead is not as high as imagined. Occasionally, the transformation fails. For example, Qin Yang injected 1,000 soul power, but in the end a skeleton came out. Although it is a high-level skeleton, its combat power is comparable to dozens or hundreds of elite skeletons, but it is not hateful or gargoyle. Such undead. As the massacre continued, Qin Yang's undead army was also growing rapidly. Ending. From the beginning of 12 heads in just 10 or 20 minutes, it has expanded to hundreds, and it is still improving at a terrifying speed. However, at this point, Qin Yang's soul power is almost exhausted, and the speed of collection can no longer keep up with the speed of consumption. Just at this moment, the sound of fierce fighting came from above the prison, and the next moment, there was a strong vibration above the head, and a purple poisonous fist smashed the thick stone wall. From the huge gap, the body of the Ice Dragon Queen suddenly fell. Boom! Longyan roared, and the Ice Dragon Queen fell in front of Qin Yang. The body of her bones was eroded by venom and looked very painful. King, the Ice Dragon Queen said in a muffled voice, I'm very sorry, I can't stop the two of them. Whizzing. As soon as her voice fell, two figures fell from the gap. These two were Magellan and King Python. They saw Qin Yang's existence at a glance, and a dense army of undead following Qin Yang. There are big skeletons, gargoyles, abominations, death knights. Both of them turned pale. What's the situation? You slaughtered prisoners. Hearing this, Qin Yang was so relaxed, as if he didn't see the two of them. He walked to the Ice Dragon Queen and stretched out his hand to soothe the other's head. You've done a great job keeping the two of them out for so long. HMPH, this damn bone dragon has really ruined my work. King Python sneered and said, the Lich King, you killed my molting clone, and stay here forever. Hey. Qin Yang let out a low laugh and slowly injected the remaining soul force into the bones of the Ice Dragon Queen. Resurrection, my allies. The blue light flickered. The Ice Dragon Queen was nourished by her soul. Her eyes immediately recovered from the fatigued state, and the damage to her body surface was also recovering visibly to the naked eye. What? Magellan stared wide-eyed with an incredible look on his face. In order to deal with this skull dragon, he spent a lot of hands and feet, and finally joined hands with the director to kill it. As a result, the Lich King stretched out his hand to restore it. What's your purpose? He frowned deeply and said angrily, breaking into the deep-sea prison just to save one person. Caesar Current, what does this person have to spend a lot of time around? However, he is a scientist in the headquarters, and his scientific ability is not outstanding. Even Baker Punk's feet can't reach him. Who knows, my purpose has been accomplished. Qin Yang slowly took out a white phone bug and dialed it directly. After a while, the phone was connected, and there was a burst of roars from the opposite side. How's the situation? Doflamingo gasped. Here is Shiryu who is blocking the rain. If you don't hurry up, you won't be able to stop it. Prepare to retreat. Qin Yang was in a good mood and said with a chuckle, by the way, let's free some more prisoners, cause a big riot and let them have no time to hunt us down. Hey, got it. After a brief conversation between the two, they immediately hung up. Qin Yang jumped to the top of the Ice Dragon Queen's head, waved his hand, and reprimanded, Undead Legion, stop them. Let's go. Whoosh. The Ice Dragon Queen flapped her bone wings and flew again, heading towards the huge gap above. Want to run? King Python was furious, and shot out with hatred, candlelight. He opened his mouth and roared, spraying out a large flame, as if to turn the gap into a sea of fire. However, at this moment, three figures suddenly came out. The three of them were all dark and armored, and a long chain was swept out in their hands, causing a gust of wind to blow the flames elsewhere. Poison Dragon Bomb. At this time, Magellan slapped it with his right palm, and immediately shot a huge purple cannonball. This cannonball is condensed from venom, and in flight, it emits poisonous gas that causes death. However, the next moment, a 3-meter-tall, burly Hockey's hatred suddenly resisted and blocked this move. I'm not afraid of you now. This hatred spewed out his mouth, his eyes emitting a fire of hatred. Seeing this, King Python looked ugly. You are long ears. Hey, King Python, I thought you didn't recognize this look. The man grinned in disgust, showing a terrifying smile. You guys should stay here. Saying that, he launched an attack on the opponent. Not only him, but hundreds of new undead souls are now behind the Qin Yang Palace. Bastards. I am here to stop them. Director, you can't let that guy go. Magellan shouted angrily, and a large amount of venom overflowed from his entire body. During the roar, a skeleton-shaped giant was released from his body, and his body was full of poison. Unlike ordinary purple poison, this time, his whole body was covered with red poison. Just by appearing in the air, the toxin has been spread out. Okay, I'll leave it to you here, and I'll go after him. Seeing this, King Python's eyes flashed, and he transformed into a mythical snake, Nine Yin Yin, and suddenly tracked away in the direction of the gap. At the same time, Qin Yang was riding the Ice Dragon Queen, galloping through the 5th floor of the extremely cold hell. He glanced behind him, and Vivi stretched out his right palm. Winter Wrath. Chapter 0113_Destroy Your Body. I'm so sad that I lost an automatic hollow square. Seeing my attitude of carrying a fever code, let's have a few automatics, big guys. Close black lens bracket. Winter Wrath. This move requires a prelude skill, Grim Winter, because it consumes a huge amount of frost power. It is difficult to activate it in a short period of time. However, this place is an extremely cold hell, and the entire space is covered with frost and cold air. Therefore, Qin Yang does not need a prelude. With one move, he immediately condenses all the cold air within a radius of 1,000 meters into a frost torrent, which suddenly shoots towards gap to the 6th floor. Ka ka ka. Just as Zhu Juin rushed out of the gap, he was hit by this round of attacks head-on, and there was no room for evasion. In an instant, the huge body turned into an ice sculpture, merging with the entire extreme cold hell. Damn! The moment he was frozen, he screamed in anger, but he was powerless to resist. Go and free the prisoner. This thing won't hold him for long. This is just a hasty blow, and it is slightly inferior to the Winter's Wrath, which can't completely seal the opponent. Roar! The Ice Dragon Queen roared and flew high. She raised her head and roared, and the frost bomb hit the stone wall above. Suddenly, a huge ice ball exploded, creating a huge crater. In a flutter, the Ice Dragon Queen has rushed into the 4th layer of scorching hell. However, that was in the past, and the current scorching hell is no different from the 5th layer extremely cold hell, which has long since turned into an extremely cold land. Not only that, the prisoners here have rioted. When Qin Yang and others appeared, a large group of prisoners were running towards the upper space. Is it bald? Qin Yang glanced, and among the group of prisoners, saw Caesar, the bald man, and Mohawk. The three seemed to be leaders, leading hundreds of prisoners to escape. Everyone noticed the existence of the Frost Queen, and all stopped at this moment. Seeing this, the bald man hurriedly shouted, "Master, I'm there." Caesar Current's face twitched, and he secretly said in his heart, "He can't see me, he can't see me." Take the two of them. Qin Yang ordered. Hearing this, the Ice Dragon Queen immediately swooped towards the prisoner. She swept over the heads of everyone, grabbing Caesar and the bald man with 2 bone claws, one left and one right. Feeling the lightness of his body, Caesar realized that he had been grabbed by the skull dragon, and was immediately frustrated. Although Qin Yang saved him, he was not a fool. He knew that the other party had plans, but thinking about it, it was better than being locked up in prison. The bald man burst into tears, and he could finally leave this hellish place. Immediately, he shouted to Moxigan, "I'll leave it to you, see you by fate." @u. In the shouting, the Ice Dragon Queen climbed high, and another frost bomb exploded the passage to the upper floor. Slash. Just breaking into the 3rd floor of the Hunger Hell, I immediately saw a messy scene. The sturdy stone pillar collapsed, and the walls and the ground were covered with sword marks, as if this was not a prison for prisoners, but a ruin. Hearing the movement, the two who were fighting looked over together. Doflamingo's eyes lit up, and he said with a deep laugh, "Fur, it seems to have succeeded. Shiryu of the Rain, I won't play with you anymore, goodbye." With 5 fingers of his right hand, a few invisible threads of silk were suddenly drawn, and the threads pulled the Ice Dragon Queen's tail. Want to run? Shiryu of the Rain snorted and spat out the cigar in his mouth. He stepped out in one step and flew up, trying to intercept it in the air. But at this moment, Qin Yang suddenly looked sideways, a pair of eyes emitting a faint blue divine light, and the attack from the soul level arrived in an instant. Soul Harvest. Boom. Shiryu of the Rain looked horrified. He found that his heart skipped a beat, his muscles were stiff, and he fell straight from the sky. Seeing this, Doflamingo, who was about to shoot, was taken aback, and then he pulled the thread and turned over and came to the back of the Ice Dragon Queen. Fufufu, worthy of being a dream cadre, a great swordsman can be repelled with just one look. He is not smiling. Compared to the nine-tailed demon fox, this mysterious cadre is stronger. It does not refer to pure combat power, but to the strangeness of his abilities. Shiryu of the Rain, as the head guard of the Great Prison, is an unquestionable great swordsman. Although his combat power is not at the admiral level, he is not far behind. This kind of expert, even if he can't be guarded, can't bear the look in the Lich King's eyes. In this regard, Qinyang was noncommittal, sitting on the dragon head calmly, and said, "The purpose has been achieved, there is no need to continue to entangle, prepare to withdraw." "Won't the whole big prison be leveled?" Doflamingo frowned. "If I stay alive and I participate in this kind of action as Shichibukai, Sengoku will definitely settle accounts with me." "What's with me?" Qinyang glanced at him and said in a leisurely tone, "Besides, do you think the Marine headquarters doesn't know? I'm afraid the prison has already applied for support, and it won't be long before Admiral will come here." Hearing this, Doflamingo's face is ugly. He is not like a dreamy person. The dragon can't see the end, and no one knows where in the world they are. But after thinking about it, he is Tenryubito, and Sengoku can't do anything about him. In contrast, he is just a thug, and the mastermind is the person in front of him. After this time, Marine probably hates your dreams to the core and won't tolerate it anymore. Even if Sengoku can tolerate it, those people above him won't allow it. Gorosei, 5 elders. Qinyang thought for a while, but then smiled. "Exactly, I will let the shadow demon visit the 5 immortals." Between words, the Ice Dragon Queen broke through the second-level prison again, and then quickly reached the first level. As soon as Luffy galloped, no one could resist. Within a few minutes before and after, several people had already flown out of the big prison and breathed the cool air above the sea again. "Looks like someone is missing." Suddenly, Doflamingo remembered something and asked, "Moria?" "Don't worry about him, his strength is not good, he was suppressed by Magellan, and it is estimated that he has been arrested." Qinyang waved his hand and pointed to the ghost ship below. After receiving the order, the Ice Dragon Queen immediately swooped down, released her bone claws one after another, and threw Caesar Current and the bald man onto the boat. Afterwards, Qinyang and Doflamingo jumped together and landed on the deck. "Let's go, now the prisoners are rioting, and they have no more troops to chase after us." Qinyang whistled, and suddenly, under the sea, 2 sea kings from the sea beast army bit the reins, dragged the ghost ship, and quickly left this sea area. However, at this moment, a huge dragon and snake figure suddenly appeared. King Python rushed out of the big prison. The snake swayed, and rushed towards the ghost ship. "Pirates, you can't run away." Others face snakes and move in rage. "Awaken." Boom. His body swelled suddenly, reaching a height of 100 meters in one breath, and the huge snake tail suddenly pulled towards the ghost ship, trying to smash the whole ship into pieces. Zone's awakening. Doflamingo's face changed slightly. "This is very difficult to deal with. Even if you are beaten to death, you can recover in a very short time." Seeing that the thick snake tail descended on his head, Qinyang took one step forward, Frostmourne in his hand radiated ghostly light, and stabbed it with a sword. "I can cut off your avatar, and I can also destroy your body." Chapter 0114-Frozen Prison. Okay, that's a bit out of place. Do you have any good suggestions? Anime, games, novels, and movies, it is best to come from these 4 types, and the ones in mythology will not appear for the time being. Hollow Square. I can cut off your avatar, and I can also destroy your body. Frostmourne stabbed out with a sword, and the dim light was brilliant, soaking half of the night sky. At this moment, it was 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. Above the sea, there was dense fog. This sword stabbed out, stirring up all the cold air in the surrounding space, turning it into a slash of frost, and suddenly facing the giant Orochi's tail. The Lich King. King Python has a snake-like face, and the anger on his face is soaring. If the other party is allowed to leave like this, what face will they have in the deep-sea prison? The sturdy snake tail was swept away, and he was already furious. Regardless of whether he was injured or not, he just wanted to intercept the ship down. However, Frostmourn's sword was terrifying, and the force of Frost mobilized to strike a blow from the air. Before it could be touched, King Python was shocked to find that his body was already under the attack of cold air, and the surface there is a frozen situation. Caw caw caw. Seeing that he was about to be forced to retreat, King Python's body suddenly exuded a high temperature, and the surface skin seemed to be burning with flames, dispelling the chill in an instant. You can't escape. As soon as his tail fell, Qinyang took it easy and raised his sword to resist. Boom! The blade collided with the scales of the snake, instantly producing a tyrannical impact that spread in all directions. The entire ship under Qinyang's feet shook violently because of this confrontation. The main body is indeed a little more powerful than the body. Qinyang held the sword in both hands, burst out with all his strength, and bounced off the opponent's long tail with one sword, and then he jumped into the air. Syndragosa. With a soft drink, the Ice Dragon Queen hovering in the air swooped down and caught Qinyang at once. Qinyang stood above the dragon head, his eyes quietly looking at Zhu Juyin below. The King Python's tail was slashed by Frostmourne, and there was a deep sword wound, and the blood of the candle was warm, overflowing in large quantities. However, this bleeding state didn't last long. Zone's awakening power made King Python's recovery ability astonishing. The wound was recovering almost at a speed visible to the naked eye. The main body should have nearly Admiral-level combat power, and it's still an awakened zone. Prolonged battles are not good for me. Qinyang was very calm and analyzed the situation rationally. If I consume it, although I won't lose, but I won't win, maybe I will be dragged to the headquarters for support. It seems that we can only fight quickly and kill with one blow. Thinking of this, Qinyang decisively let the Ice Dragon Queen approach her. Seeing Yilong and one person taking the initiative to approach, King Python was not surprised but happy. He opened his mouth and spat out a sea of fire. Candle Dragon Fire. The raging fire seemed to be conscious, and after swallowing it, it quickly turned into a flying dragon and headed towards Qinyang. Roar! After the flame dragon flew out, the temperature rose rapidly, illuminating most of the night sky. It's a pity, if you're a real dragon mythical, you might be able to hold me back until the reinforcements arrive. Qinyang raised his sword high, and the power of frost wrapped around Frostmourne, turning the blade into a dark blue. The next moment, a sword swung down, and a sky-piercing ice blade was cut out from the air. At the same time the Ice Dragon Queen opened her mouth and roared, spitting out the cold dragon breath. Frost breath. Woo-hoo. The dragon's breath took on a cone shape, and it first collided with the candle dragon fire. Immediately, the two forces of cold and heat attacked and cancelled each other out, and thick steam spread throughout the sky. But this stalemate was only for a moment. King Python was the director of the big prison, and his combat power was far higher than that of the Ice Dragon Queen. In just a second, the frost breath was dissipated, and the fiery flames prevailed. However, at this moment, Qinyang's brewing sword has been completed. Suddenly, the surrounding temperature dropped extremely, as if it had entered winter all of a sudden. The sword that Qinyang slashed easily cut the candle dragon fire, castrated unabated, and fell straight to the King Python below. What? King Python's eyes widened, his expression horrified. His attack this time was several times stronger than before, but even so, he couldn't even break the opponent's frost power. My flame can burn even Kuzan's Ice Age, your frost power, what the hell is it? His field of vision was covered with an incoming frost. Under such a large-scale attack, with his huge body, he could not dodge at all. Frozen even your soul, this is full-force winter's wrath. A large piece of frost power fell, and in an instant, this frost torrent devoured King Python's body, including the deep-sea prison behind him, and turned it into an ice sculpture castle under this blow. Whoosh! The air of frost swept through, and it was only the aftermath that had already frozen large areas of the surrounding sea. As the primary target, King Python has now become a sculpture under the dark night, crystal clear, with a shocking look on his face. His consciousness, along with his soul, stagnated. For him, the world stopped at this moment. And behind him, the world's strongest prison, which symbolizes copper walls and iron walls, has also turned into an ice crystal castle, as if it has existed for countless years, without the breath of life. On the ghost ship, Doflamingo's expression shook and his heart was churning. It was the first time he had seen the Lich King make a full effort. Although he could have guessed before that every one of Dream's cadres was at least admiral, what he saw at this moment had already shocked him. This person not only has the soul, but also has the power of freezing that surpasses Kuzan. How is this possible? How can there be such a monster? Doflamingo thought to himself, a little hard to accept. The attack just now, even if someone else came, I am afraid it will be the same result. Even the entire prison is frozen, even if Marine comes with a fleet, it will be the same end. Above the dragon head, Chinyong Vivi took a breath. Winter's Wrath is arguably his strongest application of the power of frost, similar to Kuzan's Ice Age, consuming a lot of stamina. It is impossible to use it continuously, nor how many times it is used. However, fortunately, King Python is huge, and as a target, it cannot be avoided at all, otherwise it is really difficult to deal with. He has the ability to move at the speed of light, like Kizaru. If he is given 3 chances, he may not be able to hit. It's over. In order to avoid future troubles, harvest his soul too. Thinking of this, Chinyong jumped to the top of the ice sculpture's head, and then slapped it with a palm. The power of his soul protruded, and the soul of the blue python was stripped and grabbed out. If it is normal, it is not easy to succeed, but at this moment the soul of the opponent has been frozen, and it is impossible to resist, and it is easily harvested. 1500 soul power, as expected of mythical. With a chuckle, Chinyong returned to the ghost ship, whistled again, and ordered the 2 underwater Sea King tugboats to leave. Leave. If you don't leave, the support from Marine headquarters will arrive. Chinyong said in a low voice, looking back at the huge ice sculpture at the entrance of the big prison. At the beginning, when he had just become the Lich King, he was frozen for 3 days and 3 nights by his own abilities, which shows the power of frost. Chinyong dared to promise that if Marine didn't have any special means, he wouldn't even think about unblocking King Python without spending a week or 2. Of course, if the frost seal is really unlocked, what will be obtained at that time will also be a soulless corpse. By the way, you don't want your undead army anymore? Suddenly, Doflamingo asked. Hearing this, Chinyong let out a low laugh, his eyes narrowed, and he called out, "Appear, my allies." In an instant, the undead staying in the deep-sea prison appeared one after another on the ghost ship. Soon after, 5 warships arrived at the deep-sea prison in a mighty manner. However, they were greeted only by the huge ice crystal snake statue, and after the snake statue, the deep-sea prison that had existed for an unknown number of years and was turned into an ice castle. Is it late? On the deck, Akainu looked ashen, gritted his teeth and said, "Damn Shichibukai. This matter is not up to the headquarters to decide. Report to the superior to the commander-in-chief of the world government." Chapter 0116_Banshee Power. On the 3rd day, the cold is still not cured. Hey, so annoying. The bald man climbed onto the back wing of the Ice Dragon Queen, and then, 1 person and 1 dragon flew to the island ahead. Watching them fly away, Chinyong took his eyes back and stepped off the bow. Phew. He spoke softly, and suddenly, hundreds of undead on the deck shook and stood up one after another. According to the status, strength and strength, standing in the front are 10 Death Knights, followed by nearly 20 abominations, 20 gargoyles, 20 licks, etc., and then there are large skeletons with average size 3 times the size of the skeleton. There are 30 in number. In addition, there are all elite skeletons, the number of which is more than 200. Originally, the number of these skeletons was 1,000. After attacking Impel Down, it reached 1,200. However, most of them were killed, and now only 200 have responded to the call. It doesn't matter, there are as many low-level skeletons as you want. Qin Yang doesn't feel bad at all. At this moment, all the undead stood upright, and when they saw Qin Yang approaching, they all bent down and knelt down on one knee. King, what are your orders? Hearing this, Qin Yang nodded and said, You, and you are the captains of each team. He ordered several undead in a row, and divided the Death Knight team, the Abomination team, the Gargoyle team 15, the Lich team, and the Skeleton team. Yes, King. No one dared to object. The Lich King's order, to them, was the supreme order. After counting the battle damage, Qin Yang nodded with satisfaction and said, You guys did a good job this time. You have successfully completed the task. The rewards and punishments will come later. After some arrangement, the Ice Dragon Queen and the Bald Man came back. Master, investigate clearly. As soon as he returned to the deck, the Bald Man said respectfully, There are people living on that small island, but there is no town, just a small village. There is a mountain outside the village, and there is an ancient castle on the mountain. Hearing this, Qin Yang nodded. This target island is very good. It is not an uninhabited island, and everything needs to be built from scratch. It is not an urbanized island, or even an island belonging to a certain country. It is not convenient to start with. Very suitable as the stronghold of the undead army. Going at full speed. As soon as he gave the order, Doflamingo came over and said solemnly, Since you have decided to choose here, then I will prepare the necessary materials. And now, Marine is probably already angry, and I must go back to sit in Tangji first. The Hod family. As you wish. Qin Yang was noncommittal. For the trouble has just begun. Lich King, if you don't want to go to war with Marine, you should prepare early. Leaving a sentence, Doflamingo jumped out of the boat. In his hands, there are invisible silk threads projected in the sky, with clouds hanging. At this moment, he walks in the air, steps on Moon Step, and leaves quickly. Qin Yang didn't care about what he said, and Marine couldn't do anything about him. At most, the Shichibukai identity of the nine-tailed demon fox collapsed, and everything went back to the original point. However, for him, there is no substantial loss. Originally mixed with a Shichibukai title, it was also to facilitate the capture of Caesar Current. Now that the goal has been achieved, the identity of Shichibukai is optional. Just thinking about it, Qin Yang called in a low voice, Banshee. King. As if a voice sounded in the void, a transparent old woman floated over. Your ability is only mind control? Qin Yang asked. Cut. Yes, Q. To what extent can you control people? NNGT. It's not clear. The stronger the willpower, the harder it is to control. Well, come with me later, let's do an experiment. After thinking about it, Qin Yang decided to give it a try. The ghost ship quietly approached the island and logged in on the wooded side of the island. Afterwards, the group went to the ancient castle on the top of the mountain in a mighty way. It was a house full of European style from the Middle World. It covered a large area, but it seemed to be in disrepair. The iron gate was dilapidated. The walls of the house were covered with various plants and vines. Of course, it's not really uninhabited here. Although it looked like a ghost palace from a distance, after getting closer, Qin Yang could still perceive that there was indeed a human breath in the house. Along the way, Qin Yang led his subordinates straight in, and whenever he saw a human being, he was first subdued and stunned. Many servants fainted from fright just by seeing the moving skeletons. Therefore, Qin Yang and others did not encounter any resistance at all. Finally, the owner of the castle was caught by a death knight in the dining room where he was enjoying breakfast. In just 5 minutes before and after, the entire castle has been controlled by the undead army. Report to the king, a total of 29 people have been captured. A knight reported. Shut up first. Qinyang waved his hand, walked to the owner of the old castle, and stared at him quietly. This man was in his 40s, with a big belly, and his face was full of horror at the moment. When he was having a good meal early in the morning, such a group of robbers broke in. His legs trembled with fright, he swallowed, and said, "Da, sire, surround me with my life. If you ask for money, I can give you money." Banshee. Qinyang gave an order. Suddenly, a ghost-like banshee slowly flew out from behind Qinyang. "Can you control it? It's just that this guy totally fine." The banshee let out an unpleasant laugh, and then moved directly into the body of the owner of the castle. The pot-bellied man's face was twisted, as if he was suffering some kind of horror. He rolled on the ground, and after a while, he became quiet. "Huh." Long breath, the man grinned, kneeled respectfully, and said, "King, I have taken control of this body." Without waiting for Qinyang to speak, the man took the initiative to say, "I got some of his memories. His name is Earl of Chashan. The owner of this ancient castle used to be a nobleman. He seems to have provoked someone many years ago, so he hid here. He has a fleet under his command and is engaged in business operations. Other than that, he seems to have no children." After listening to this, Qinyang understood and asked, "Is it difficult to control this guy?" "It's not difficult," Earl Chashan said. "The reason why it took a little time is to acquire memory. If it's just control, it can be done in an instant." "Not bad," Qinyang said with admiration. "Try Marine Vice Admiral next time. If even Vice Admiral can control, then..." Qinyang didn't say it directly. He thought in his heart whether he could control Gorosei, 5 elders, or at worst, Tenryubito's. With the help of Tenryubito's forces, it's not too easy to collect devil fruits secretly. Compared with a banshee, the rest of the undead are not worth mentioning, but unfortunately, there is only one banshee. It would be nice if there were a little more. Qinyang thought regretfully, then turned around and commanded, "Varian." "Yes, sir, what are your orders?" "We'll stay here for the time being, you can arrange it." "Understood, sir, don't worry." The bald man is overjoyed. He escaped from birth, and now he is with the Lich King in 703. It seems that sooner or later, he can become a member of the Dream, and even if he doesn't, he can be regarded as a peripheral dog. As for whether it is very honorable to be a dog leg, at least in the eyes of the bald man, it is very honorable to be a dog leg for the Dream Pirates. Immediately, he quickly brought into the role and began to arrange it. Meanwhile, the Holy Land, Mariajoy. The World Government Headquarters building, in a room that is simple but not lacking in sophistication. A burly old man with a mohawk head quietly listened to the reports of his subordinates. Beard on his chin, is muscular, wears a military coat on his back, and also has the word justice. Not only that, but this person's desk was densely covered with a pile of medals. His name is Kong, the former Marine Headquarters Marshal, the current World Government Army Commander. After listening to his subordinate's report, Kong's expression became strange, and he frowned. "Unbelievable, you mean? A certain figure in the dream led an army of skeletons to attack the deep-sea prison, accompanied by 2 Shichibukai thugs." Yes, the young men were dripping with cold sweat. Boom. Kong slammed his fist on the table and scolded, "Are you kidding? Who are the 2 Shichibukai? Gecko Moria, Don Quixote Doflamingo. Doflamingo, this bastard, he won't have a day in peace." Kong frowned and hummed, "Where's Moria? Such a big thing has to be dealt with seriously. He was originally caught, but suddenly disappeared again. We suspect that he was rescued by someone." "What?" Hearing this, Kong's face was ashen, his beard curled back in anger. "How am I going to explain this to the Gorosei, 5 elders? A bunch of trash. Let Sengoku come and see." "Yes." Chapter 0120 _ Don't say Benlong bullies you. Pistol kiss. The Empress was very dissatisfied with Qin Yang's attitude, and she couldn't bear it any longer. She put her fingertips together, and under a kiss, immediately shot a heart-shaped substance at Qin Yang. Whoosh! This love bullet has an extremely fast rate of fire, from forming to launching. Like a flash of lightning, it came to Qin Yang's body easily. Do you fight mosquitoes? Qin Yang pouted, put one hand in his pocket, raised the other hand high, palms outward, easily blocking the blow. At the same time, dark scales appeared all over his body, which were dragon scales, and their defensive power was extremely outstanding. With a bang, the peach heart bullet hit the scales in the palm of the hand, and the impact radiated, and was finally smashed by Qin Yang's palm. Huh! Qin Yang raised his eyebrows, stared down at his right palm, and the palm was emitting green smoke repeatedly, showing that this blow was no trivial matter. What a strong penetration! Is armament hockey attached? Unfortunately, it can't break my defense. The Sea Dragon is a 4-star, 4 Emperor level strength, even if it is in a half-transformation state. It is only a dragon scale, and it will not be easily defeated. Although Qin Yang's current body does not have much combat power, it does not mean that he is completely ordinary. 15. It is still possible to use the characteristics of the sea dragon like this. Seeing this, Sandersonia hurriedly discouraged, Sister, calm down, calm down. HMPH, concubine must teach him a lesson today. The Empress was so annoyed that she finally found Heilong. How could she calm down? Immediately, she sprinted and came to Qin Yang in an instant, then turned around and swept out. Perfume femur. Her movements are wide open and closed, but the female body is soft, but it looks quite beautiful, like dancing. It's just that the Empress was wearing a wide open cheongsam, and she kicked it out, revealing her big white legs. Qin Yang looked at it subconsciously, and suddenly the corner of his mouth twitched. You are too enthusiastic, I can't bear it. While speaking, dragon scales appeared on his body, and he raised his left arm to quickly resist. Boom! As soon as his foot fell, Qin Yang felt a heavy impact. If he wasn't in a half-transformed state, it would be very uncomfortable for him to fall on anyone. The underwear is showing. He clicked his tongue and said, Don't think I dare not hit you. HMPH, filthy man. The Empress didn't care. She couldn't succeed with one blow. She used the strength of her left foot to fly up, twist her waist quickly in the air, and kicked it out again. During this movement, Rao was Qin Yang, who couldn't help but be attracted by the scenery under the skirt of the other party. Don't be ashamed. Do you think I'll just stand there and let you beat me if you reveal your underwear? Qin Yang is in a semi-transformed state, and his insight is amazing. Even with a glimpse, he can see it very clearly. However, he has never been fascinated by sex, and while watching, he quickly retreats to dodge. Whoosh! The Empress fell, sweeping across the air, setting off a gust of wind. The wind was so strong that Qin Yang couldn't help but be blown into an unstable center of gravity. You stupid dragon, turn into a stone statue. There was a smile on the corner of the queen's mouth. She seemed to need no help in the air, and she actually idled in a circle. Her long legs were raised high, and she was suddenly knocked down. This time, Qin Yang's center of gravity was unstable, and the timing of his fall was very clever. Not only that, but once the body is hit, it will be forced to petrify. Little girl, you are still young. At the critical moment, Qin Yang haha isho, he pressed his palm on the deck, stood upside down, and at the same time greeted him with one foot. Boom! The two legs collided, and there was a dull low cry, and an invisible shock spread outward, and the women who were watching suddenly backed away in shock. Armament. The Empress was stunned. She never imagined that this dragon had mastered armament hockey. Armament wraps around her body, resisting her petrifying power. While she was stunned for a moment, Qin Yang pushed the palm of his hand, the whole person stood upside down and vacated, and quickly opened a distance. Benlong isn't playing either, just armament, already mastered. Qinyang folded his arms around his chest and looked at the Empress calmly. Having said that, in reality, armament hockey was only recently mastered, during his transformation into the Lich King. This kind of hockey power is not complicated to learn. The difficulty is to condense the spirit into hockey. Most people are stuck at the level of condensing, but Qinyang is special and is stuck in the lack of spirit. However, in the past few months, Qinyang has done a lot of things, played against various masters, and his own spirit has grown rapidly, so he naturally learned armament. HMPH, the Empress snorted, a hint of play flashed across her beautiful eyes. Your armament is extremely rough, you just forcibly kneaded your own aura into hockey, at most it's just a wrap-around level, it's not worth mentioning. Hearing this, Qinyang remained calm. His skin was thick enough, and even if he was exposed in person, he would not feel ashamed at all. A mere hockey, if it wasn't to deal with Logia, Benlong would be too lazy to learn. Then you will be turned into a stone statue. The Empress was so annoyed that she moved and bullied her again. This time, she also used armament, both of which are hockey. There are also strong and weak points. Hockey with stronger concentration can naturally crush rough hockey. It is like two shields. When they collide with each other, they will be divided into superior and inferior. Seeing this, Qinyang roared loudly, and the dragon roared in bursts. The whole person radiated white light, and instantly turned into a 100-meter giant dragon. Am I stupid enough to fight hockey with you? You have big breasts and you really don't have any brains. The real body was revealed, and suddenly, the entire pirate ship was shaking violently, and there was a sign that it could not support it and began to sink. The deck swayed, and the Empress was unstable. Taking this opportunity, Qinyang stretched out his paws, his eyes were fast, and his hands were 530. He directly grabbed the Empress, big white legs and lifted her up in one breath. Dragon, you, let your concubine go down. The Empress was furious, and her cheongsam hung upside down, revealing not only her white legs, but also her underwear. Qinyang raised her in front of him and looked at each other playfully. Little girl, don't say that Benlong bullied you. You didn't do anything to me after letting you for so long just now. Hearing this, the Empress was filled with shame and anger. For her, this kind of emotion was extremely rare, and her beautiful eyes stared at the huge dragon head like fire. My Lady Empress. Suddenly, a group of crew members turned pale with shock. Lord Patronus, please calm down and let Lord Hancock go. Lord Qin, Madam Empress is just angry for a while, put away your body quickly, or the ship will sink. A group of women chatted and begged for mercy. Qinyang glanced at the group of women and said helplessly, I'm not your patron saint. However, as soon as he finished speaking, a figure rushed out, knelt on the ground, and shouted, Lord Patronus. When Qinyang saw it, he was speechless. This person was Amanda, a mad believer who was crippled by her. He pouted. Qinyang didn't bother to pay attention to her, turned his eyes to Boya Hancock, and said playfully, Little girl, how should I deal with you? Humph. The Empress was extremely arrogant and snorted coldly, not convinced at all. Sneak attack. Despicable. Chaos Dragon.